Collective, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am the Nosy Witch and this is my channel, Nosy Witch Tarot. If you've been here before, thank you so much for joining me today. You know the deal. If you have not been here before, I do collective pick a card readings here on YouTube. I cover various topics and I'm always open to suggestions, but overall, many of my readings tend to be focused on self-empowerment and on uplifting and motivating you guys as a collective. By the way, if my desk looks different to usual, it's because I got this really cute new mat for my birthday. And if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I've been moving things around in the room that I do tarot in. So I've actually been trying to make this desk look a little bit less sterile. So I was very excited to receive this mat. It's just really cute. I love it. Anyway, my readings tend to be deep dives. They do tend to be pretty long, so feel free to put me on in the background, grab a hot or cold beverage, whichever you prefer, and get cozy because we are about to get started. So this reading is titled, What Makes You So Unforgettable? Who Won't Ever Forget You and Why? So the bulk of this reading is going to be focused on you and what makes you so incredibly difficult to forget. How do you leave an impact on people? What is it that you do that has you living rent-free in people's heads forevermore? So that is really what your oracle reading and the first portion of your tarot reading is going to cover. As is the case with the majority of my readings, this reading will be split into two main sections, your oracle reading and then your tarot reading. There will be timestamps for both below. You can feel free to use the oracle portion of the reading as an energy check and for confirmation that you've chosen the correct pile today. But during the second portion of the reading, we're going to be asking who won't ever or can't ever forget you. So if you want to know whose head you are living in rent-free specifically, this portion of the reading is going to go into more depth when it comes to that. You know, this could just be one person, it could be a couple of people, it could even be a group of people. I don't know what's going to come through, we're just going to see. But basically the first half will kind of center more around you, traits specific to you that tend to be most memorable to others day to day. And, you know, throughout the second half, we're going to be discussing who this person is. It's not really going to be a deep dive on them, but it's just going to be for extra confirmation on who this might be. And I've done it this way specifically because some of you are just here to listen to the bits focused on you and you're not interested in whoever else might be having their little lingering thoughts about you, and that's fine. You don't have to stay and listen to the who if that's not going to be in your best interest, or if you just don't care and you just want to hear about what makes you memorable. You know, I always encourage you doing what is best for you. So if you just want to listen to one portion of the reading, you are more than welcome to. Always take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. Now, you know the situation. This is a collective reading on YouTube. Not every single detail is going to resonate for you, nor would I expect it to. If the overall pile sounds like you, even if not every single detail resonates, that's a sign that you are in the right place. But those details are maybe for another person who chose the same pile as you. However, if you do start listening to the oracle reading and the vibes are off, or it just does not sound like you at all, that's maybe a sign that it is either not your pile or not your reading today, and that's also okay. Absolutely nothing bad is going to happen to you if you choose the wrong pile. You are always welcome to go back and choose again. You are also welcome to choose more than one pile if more than one pile is calling to you today. What you never have to do is try to make something fit if it simply doesn't. Also, when we do readings that involve another person's energy, I always like to add a little disclaimer that if you are done with a particular energy when it comes to a past situation or person, you are not obligated to keep anyone in your life if they are just not meant to be there. And just because a person is thinking about you and their energy is coming through on a random tarot reading, that doesn't mean that you owe that person anything, particularly, you know, if they have hurt you or crossed your boundaries or you're just over it, you're done with it. These readings are intended to provide clarity for you, not to confuse you further. Always bear in mind that when it comes to other energies and collective readings, it's possible that you are in a different stage of the timeline than another person who chose the same pile as you. So if you've been there, done that, and you no longer want to hear about it, that is absolutely your right. For a lot of you, I know you come to these readings just for peace of mind and closure more than anything, and not necessarily because you intend to return to a past situation if you know it's not good for you. Some of you, it's more like you can feel or sense that somebody has been pulling on your energy and you're just looking for that reassurance of, oh, like I'm not crazy, I knew I could feel that. So that is what you may use this reading for. With those little disclaimers out of the way, let's go ahead and introduce the piles. So over here we have pile 1 and the Queer Tarot with the Small Talk Survivor sticker. That is pile 1 and the Queer Tarot with the Small Talk Survivor sticker. Over here we have pile 2 with the Good Karma Tarot and the Balloon Animal sticker. That is pile 2 and the Good Karma Tarot with the Balloon Animal sticker. Over here, we have pile 3, the Plastics Oracle, a Mean Girls Tarot with the book sticker. That's pile 3 and the Plastics Oracle, a Mean Girls Tarot with the book sticker. And over here, we have pile 4 and the Dog Tarot. That is a new tarot deck to me, by the way. I'm very excited to use it. We have the Dog Tarot with the Happy Pills sticker. That is pile 4 and the Dog Tarot with the Happy Pills sticker. Feel free to pause the video if you would like a couple of moments to choose your pile and reflect on what your intuition is calling you towards. Once you've made your selection, please head to the description box or the pinned comments below. Timestamps will be listed there and they will take you to the start of your chosen reading. I really hope you enjoyed this reading today. I love doing the hype you up style readings. If you haven't done so already, please consider liking, commenting and subscribing to the channel. All of that just lets me know you like the style of content and you'd like to see more of it going forward. You doing any of that would mean the absolute world to me. It's the best and easiest way to support me and I would just appreciate it so very much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen. And without any further hesitation, let's get started with the reading. I will see you at your chosen pile collective. Hi Pile 1 Collective, if you chose Pile 1 and you chose the Queer Tarot and the Small Talk Survivor sticker, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. You do not have to identify as LGBTQ+ to have picked the Queer Tarot, by the way. I just heard, but it helps. Okay, but it helps. But don't worry, if your intuition guided you to this deck as a hetero, it doesn't have to mean anything other than your intuition found the deck pretty. The cards aren't going to turn you gay, don't worry. Although the way the dating scene is out there right now, especially for my straight women, oof, the bar is on the floor. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to try something new. Okay, I don't know where that came from, but anyway, this reading is all about what makes you so unforgettable and who won't ever forget you. So if you would like a full breakdown regarding everything this reading will entail, please go ahead and check out the introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I'm not going to go into all of the disclaimers again, but I just want to briefly reiterate that these are collective readings. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. And as always, if you're finding that any part of this reading is becoming more harmful to you than it is helpful, please feel free to pick a different pile or give this one a miss. These readings are intended to uplift and empower, not to confuse you further. If you need to sit this one out, you are more than welcome to come back for a future reading. So we are about to get started by looking at your oracle cards. So actually, I'm going to move your tarot cards to one side for now so we can focus on these oracle cards in front of us right here. Please feel free to use this portion of the reading as an overall energy or vibe check, and for confirmation you have chosen the right pile. Go in with an open mind, but don't force anything to fit if it just simply doesn't. Absolutely nothing bad will happen if you choose the wrong pile. All it means is that you get to go back and pick another pile. You are also welcome to choose more than one if more than one is calling towards you. So before we look at your cards today, I actually want to talk a little bit about this sticker in relation to your energy pile 1, because you picked specifically the Small Talk Survivor sticker. So right off the bat, the overall message I'm getting for you is that you might really struggle with more surface level or seemingly shallow conversations. And I'm not necessarily getting that you dislike socializing entirely, even if you're introverted or whatever, because it feels like when you're with the right people, you could probably yap for England and go really, really deep with people. But that's the thing, it's like maybe you thrive when you're able to really have those in-depth philosophical conversations about these big societal issues. And it's not that you don't know how to do small talk, you're capable of it. It's just that, you know, asking how was your weekend or talking about the weather at the office every single day is almost unbearable for you because it's so mind-numbingly boring, I want to say. It's like some of you would rather just say nothing at all and then have to deal with small talk, like you're talking about those deeper topics or nothing. And I think you probably thrive when you're around people who facilitate that, and that isn't going to be everyone, unfortunately. And so you might struggle when it comes to attending events where there's an expectation, I want to say, to sort of keep things very light or keep things surface level, because that just feels like it lacks meaning. You're really at your best when you can bounce off someone who is either just as opinionated as you or who is equally willing at least to dive headfirst into some of those deeper topics and kind of go back and forth with you or even debate with you a little bit. And that's the thing, it's like you're having fun and you're having the best time when you're able to do that, because then you're truly yourself. But some people are reluctant to go deeper like that, and so they might have accused you of being too much in the past. It's like maybe in the past you've had certain interactions where someone's kind of stopped the conversation, like, whoa, we're getting a little bit deep here now, as if that's a bad thing, and you're like, yeah, that was kind of the point. That's when I have the most fun, is when I get to go deep. And you could have had people almost shaming you, like, oh, can't we just have a nice light-hearted conversation? Or, you know, do you always have to take it to that place? Or do we always have to get political? Or something along those lines. But on your end, you might be someone who is kind of like, well, I was just given an authentic response because really every small thing connects to something bigger. Like all of these things that we're talking about connect to this bigger issue in society, or, you know, everything is political. It's kind of that. So it won't be this exact example, but let's say someone casually mentions the weather and they're like, oh, it's super warm for this time of year. Instead of you just being like, yeah, it is warm, you could be like, well, we're seeing the effects of climate change and blah, blah, blah. And maybe someone interjects you or tries to shoot you down like, okay, let's not go there. We don't need to go on a rant about climate change. But this isn't you trying to be like argumentative or anything like that. I think this is how you connect with people. And honestly, you feel most alive by delving into some of these more complex issues. I don't think you're trying to be controversial or anything like that. It's just you're fascinated by these bigger topics. So you're kind of like, what's the problem? And don't get me wrong, obviously you can read the room and you know that there's a time and a place. Like, I don't think you'd go and make someone's engagement dinner about you by like arguing with people about political things at the dinner table. But it's more like you're interested in other people's perspectives, so you're open to a debate or you're open to a challenge. And maybe certain people, because they're uncomfortable with that, they kind of try and shut you down like, oh, let's not go into that, let's just leave it, because they see you discussing these topics as you being argumentative in some way, when often that just isn't the case. So sometimes you do read the room and you're like, well, I'm just gonna mind my business and I'm going to just stay in my lane and try and get through this event, because if I'm being forced to talk about the weather when actually all I want to do is have these big life-changing discussions about the afterlife or aliens or feminism or something, whatever the case may be, it can be difficult for you to get through those events where you're expected to keep everything very small scale, like you're expected to lessen yourself in some way. You don't like being around people who try to make you smaller in that way. You don't like being around people who try to silence you. With this sticker being star-shaped, this is making me think of Aquarius or 11th house energy, because there's very much this feeling of you focusing on things on a bigger scale, like how a community is affected rather than an individual. You could have prominent 8th or 9th house placements in your birth chart, although that does not have to apply. It's just a little bit of extra confirmation if it does. So right off the bat, I think there's something unforgettable about the things you say and the things you're willing to discuss. But let's have a look at the cards we pulled for you. So I'll just pop that over here and let's have a look at the cards we've got. So our first card is Sagittarius. Okay, that makes sense. Traits are honest, caring, loyal, impatient, superficial, blunt. Element is fire. Ruling planet is Jupiter. Major arcana card is Temperance. Stones are turquoise and topaz. Colours are purple and yellow. Lucky numbers are 5, 6 and 8. Flowers are chrysanthemum and carnation. We have number 17, flower, be honest with yourself. And we have number 3, desire, lettuce. Okay, so you could have Sagittarius or fire sign placements, although that does not have to apply by any means. I'm using these astrological cards today, as I quite often do, more to represent the archetype. So you could have prominent Sag placements, but you don't have to. With us getting the number 3 on this letters card and the 3rd house representing communication, again, I am getting something strong about your communication. It could be that your Mercury is in a sign that sort of likes to get deep and philosophical about things. You could have a Sag or Scorpio Mercury, or even Gemini, Pisces or Aquarius Mercury. Again, these are just details for specific people and they don't have to apply for this to be your pile. But still, I am getting this message of like something about the way you deliver a message is absolutely unforgettable. Another thing I'm hearing is that you're a straight shooter. I keep hearing that, and that's not a phrase I use at all. I don't think I've ever said that in my life, but I keep hearing you're a straight shooter, and I also keep hearing aim and fire. So it might sound obvious to those of you who hear that phrase a lot, but personally it is not a common phrase in my vocabulary. But what I gather from straight shooter, it's like you're someone who is very honest and you're not afraid to say what you think, even if it means, you know, not fitting in with the status quo. I'm getting like a lot of you just do not beat around the bush. Like if you've got something to say, you will say it. And if there's something you want to go after, you're going to go after it. You're not going to let things hold you back. Because I'm getting the sense that with this pile, a lot of people have probably tried to, I don't want to say hold you back in the past. I mean, maybe that is the case for some of you, but I think for a lot of you, especially with Sagittarius being associated with the Temperance card, it's like you've been encouraged to temper yourself in some way, but it's maybe in a way that hasn't always allowed the most authentic version of you to shine. So maybe, you know, in the past you've been told to moderate your language to make other people feel comfortable, or you've been told to calm down when you get excitable, or you've been told to keep things light in conversations, or you've been encouraged not to dream big and to temper your expectations of other people in some way. So one example of this is you being encouraged to modify the way you articulate yourself to fit in with a certain work culture or something along those lines. With this imagery on this flowers card, I'm getting this image of you feeling like you blurted something out and then you're like, oop, I shouldn't have said that, and you cover your mouth. So some of you have maybe been shamed for your direct approach, or you've thought, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Did I say too much? Was I too blunt? And maybe you felt like in certain social settings you've had to wear a mask or hold back so as not to come across as tactless. But I think one of the things that is most unforgettable about you is really your ability to say what needs to be said in this really raw, authentic, and unmoderated way. And I think you'd be surprised by how many people remember a specific thing you've said, because secretly maybe a lot of people agree with you, but you've been one of the few people bold enough to just come right out and say it. Maybe sometimes you've said a certain thing and the room has gone silent, or there's this intense lingering energy and you thought like, oh shit, I shouldn't have gone there. And obviously, depending on the circumstances, sometimes it is important to think before we speak and try to be diplomatic when we deliver a message. But also, what I want to say is like, if you have the power, if you have that kind of power to silence a room like that, it doesn't automatically mean that you've said something wrong. Maybe you've just said something that actually makes people think. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing, pal one. One thing that I'm guessing about you, pal one, is that you really do have the audacity. And when I say that, I don't mean it in an insulting way. You're audacious in the best way possible, because you say things that others won't. You go there when other people aren't willing to. And oftentimes, it's not in a way where you're coming across as entitled or you're just saying insulting things and people are like, where do they get off coming out with that? It's more like you'll say something and you have people in awe, you have them astounded. They're like, I can't believe pal one said that, but good for them. And often I get the sense that it's something to do with standing up for what's right, or challenging the status quo, or advocating for the underdog, or for this bigger cause. A lot of you could deal with this strong sense of justice sensitivity, and a lot of what you say, it's like people almost want to clap for you, and they're like, heck yeah, pal one really went there, because you managed to say something in seconds that people have been gearing up to say for weeks, and haven't been able to muster up the courage to come out with directly like that. And with those things you say, you manage to create almost instantaneous change. So one example that I'm getting, and it won't be this exact one for you, but I'm just trying to illustrate what I mean. So let's say you and a few of your colleagues work for this big corporation, and one day you're all in this meeting with the bosses and higher ups, and maybe, one of these higher ups says like, well, we've noticed you're all clocking out at 6 p.m. every day and there's still work left to do, or, customer emails to answer, and we've decided you can't leave until all of these queries are answered or all this work is done, something like that. So maybe this is an expectation that they've set that you have to do overtime or whatever, but they're not willing to pay you past 6 p.m. So, a lot of people, when they're put into that kind of position, they're going to feel very intimidated because these big wigs of that company are there and they're worried about, stepping out of line and potentially putting their job at risk. So maybe they just don't say anything in that moment, or they're thinking like, I'm going to go away and spend time drafting a response to ask to be paid for my time without like coming across as rude. They're thinking like, how do I say this in a way that's not going to make me lose my job? And it's like a lot of the time the higher ups will put pressure on people like this on purpose because they know that it's an intimidating situation, or they know that people probably aren't going to challenge them in that moment. But you're the kind of person who will just come right out and say like, okay, so are you paying me until 7 p.m. then? Or are you asking me to just work for free? And it catches everyone off guard. Your bosses go silent because they weren't expecting anyone to challenge them. And your co-workers, your peers, go silent because they're in awe of you for just saying what they were thinking. But everyone's quiet and it gets everyone thinking. And maybe your bosses realise like, oh crap, now we're going to have to agree to pay them what they're owed because we don't want any legal repercussions for this. We're not just going to get away with this. Some of these people rely on the notion that people won't go against them or people won't know their rights, but you prove them wrong. You have that audacity. You get fired up about things, and so sometimes it feels like maybe your mouth lands you in trouble, but it's in a way where usually you're fighting for justice or for a worthwhile cause, something you're passionate about, and people don't forget this. They could literally say, remember when we were in that meeting and pal one left our boss speechless? Not that exact example, but again, it's that sort of energy. There could be something about higher education or courses here. Maybe the things you've asked or said in lectures really stand out to people and it leaves them thinking or questioning things. People just really don't forget the things that you come out with, and sometimes they're like, okay, it's not the way I would have worded it, but I agree with the sentiment. The clip I'm being shown in my head right now, I'm not saying this is exactly like you, but if you've seen that Kanye West clip, I think he's on the news and they're talking about fundraising, I guess for like Hurricane Katrina, This is from years ago, by the way, but if you're on the internet in any capacity, I'm sure you've seen the clip, but it's where Kanye just says, George Bush doesn't care about black people, like so randomly. And what's funniest is if you look at everyone else's reactions to that, it's clearly so unexpected. Like, nobody knows what to do with that. I watch that clip every few months. It absolutely cracks me up to this day. Some of you leave people shook because you know how to roast people. Your comeback game is on point. I think you know how to cut right to the bone, but I think it's only when it's deserved, and people don't forget this. They might even say to you, like, remember when you absolutely roasted this person, or you shut down this person? And I think it's often when you're sticking up for somebody else for the greater good, and maybe sometimes you feel like you take it a little bit too far, or you're not the best with tact, but honestly, the way you say things gets results. That is something that I'm getting. And by the way, I don't think you're ever just like mean to people for no reason, but I think when someone pushes you too far, you know how to shut them down. And maybe it does leave people like, whoa, pal one, you really went there. But ultimately, you say what everyone else is thinking. So one example I'm getting, obviously it will not be this example, but I do like to give examples to reiterate what I mean. But let's say you are in this friendship group and there's this one person in the group who is always showing up smelling of body odor, and you have all acknowledged it privately, but nobody knows how to broach it with this individual in a diplomatic way. And maybe one person in the group has said they're going to do it because they're close with that person, but they've been putting it off. They're like, I'm waiting for the right time. I don't know how to word it. I'm thinking of what I can say without offending this person. And maybe days or weeks pass and they still haven't dealt with it. But let's say this individual who has the body odor isn't necessarily kind when it comes to other people, and maybe this person is really winding you up one day by saying unpleasant things, or bullying somebody else in the group, or spreading misinformation, or whatever it is, and you're getting tired of this person. Like, as one example, maybe this person is being sexist or something. Let's say this is a guy, maybe they start bullying or being rude to a girl in your friendship group and making unsolicited remarks about this girl's appearance. Maybe they say something like, oh, you know, like most men wouldn't date you because you're really flat-chested, or I wouldn't date you because you're overweight, or something along those lines, and it's just really, really winding you up. And you see that these comments have upset this girl, and it angers you to the point where you just retort back with something like, well, don't worry, Bob, she wouldn't date you either. You're not even going to get close to another person because you fucking stink. Go and put on some deodorant. And it's not like you would ever go out of your way to embarrass or shame someone if they didn't deserve it. But in this instance, you're kind of like, well, this person started it, I'm going to finish it. And it's a bit like killing two birds with one stone, because when they come back, they no longer smell and they're no longer making rude comments. So it's maybe not the best way you could have gone about it, but it's very efficient. It's something that I'm getting. I keep hearing the phrase efficient. Like, you solved that problem, essentially, and they're not going to be rude again. So there's some element of like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or, you know, it shouldn't have come out like that, or people thinking you've taken it too far. But at the same time, it had to be said, and you got the results that nobody else did. People listen to you because they know that you're honest. But it's almost, I want to say, unforgettable, because it's shocking to people, because many of you come across as very harmless on the surface, but when people push you too far, you really will go there. Some of you could kind of dress similarly to this. Obviously, you know, those specifics won't apply to everyone, but for some of you, you have a very cottagecore, fairy core, cutesy, feminine style. And so this ability to flip from this easygoing, like, I'm just here for a nice, wholesome, whimsical time, to putting people in their place within an instant is like unforgettable to people who encounter your energy. You're giving a very, I know I'm cute, but don't test me kind of vibe. Some of you could have big curly or coily hair. I'm also getting that some of you could have recently or in the past dyed your hair a coppery or reddy orangey kind of colour. And many of you with this desire card, I'm hearing that you're heavily desired but rarely obtained. And for a lot of you, I want to say it's like you're unforgettable because you're the one that got away. But I think for many of you, you didn't really get away because you couldn't even be caught in the first place. Like, they never even had you in their grasp to begin with, is something that I'm getting. So you could have experienced a lot of people secretly crushing on you, or like unsolicited crushes, people desiring you, and they feel like, you know, pal one was the one that got away, even when they don't know you that well, because maybe they had one conversation with you and it had this big impact on them. Which could happen because, you know, as we said, you like to go deep. So for people who aren't used to those kinds of conversations, they might come away like, wow, that was the most profound conversation I've had in a while, because it has a bigger impact on them than it does on you, because that's not something they experience every day. Whereas with you, that's just how you operate generally. Like, it's just another Tuesday to you kind of thing. Maybe you get a lot of people meeting you once and finding it difficult to forget you, wanting to be in your life, wanting to be in your inner circle. Because yeah, you don't just have conversations with people, you have experiences with them, and they don't forget those experiences easily. The angel number 1717 could be significant here too, and I believe this number has a few different meanings, one of which is about staying true to yourself, and I think that's something you do and it's something that's not forgotten about you. It can also be about like letting go of perfection, and I think that's something that you're kind of learning, particularly if in the past it's felt like being around certain people has made you have to hold back. It's like you'll say what needs to be said to make what needs to happen. And sometimes maybe you're like, didn't word that in the best way I could have, but the point is you're the one making moves and getting things done. And it doesn't just have to be with the more serious conversations either. A lot of you, with the Sagittarius energy coming through, you kind of have this hilarious, goofy, class clowny kind of energy. And some of you have this shocking humor that people really remember. Maybe people are like, I can't believe Pile 1 just said that. And even you're like, I can't believe I just said that, but I did. It's out there now. It's on the table. Deal with it. So if you've had to deal with learning to love yourself unconditionally, despite the fact that people in the past have maybe perceived you as too much, I think that something unforgettable about your energy is that you're realizing it's not that you were ever too much, it's just that some people aren't enough, and that is their burden to deal with. There could also be something here about a dream you're working on or something you're trying to manifest being significant here, because the angel number 1717 can also be about having this power to manifest your dreams. So maybe if you've had these big goals in the past and people have said to you, maybe you're dreaming too big, or maybe you should temper your expectations a little, you're like, no, I'm doing this, I'm going after this, I'm going to make it work, and you're doing it, and it's something that's going to make you unforgettable. Because people are going to remember the time they thought you couldn't do it, and they're going to be looking at you in awe, like, Pile 1 really went and did it, they really went there. That's kind of a mantra for you. You go where others have not gone before in all ways. But yeah, that is what I'm getting for you for the oracle portion of your reading. We are about to get started with your tarot cards, so let's have a look at what we pulled for you, Pile 1. I really hope you are enjoying the reading so far. If this sounds like you, we are about to move on to the tarot. So let's get started with that. I'll see you at your tarot reading, Pile 1. Hi Pile 1 Collective, welcome back to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's have a look at the first 8 cards we pulled for you. So this is a deeper dive elaborating on some of the energy we discussed throughout your oracle. We're going to be doing a deeper dive on what makes you unforgettable. So I'm going to pull the first 8 cards. I'm going to have to check if they're in frame after I've pulled them. Okay, let's just move them here. So we have got, first of all, the 3 of Cups. We've got the Fool. We've got Temperance reversed. Okay, that's interesting. We have the 8 of Pentacles. We have got the 9 of Cups reversed. We've got the 7 of Pentacles. We've got High Priestess. And we've got the 9 of Pentacles. Something that is unforgettable about you, Pile 1, I'm hearing it's that your energy just cannot be contained. It's just so big. And I think we might have mentioned it in the oracle. You are that embodiment of bigger picture thinking. Nothing is a small topic for you because even the small topics link to something bigger. Your worldview is so expansive and it feels like there's something about your energy being all encompassing. You won't be made smaller. You won't tolerate being told to simmer down. You won't lower your expectations. You won't keep silent because it's what's expected. If someone says to you, you can't do that, you're dreaming too big, you won't reach that goal, you prove them wrong in a way that has this lasting impact. This might not be for everyone, but with all these pentacles coming through, it really does feel like you're working on something right now that is going to become unforgettable. So this might be a career path, like something you're studying for, a business idea, a hobby, but it's something you're putting a lot of work into regardless of what it is. And maybe people haven't believed you when you said, I want to make a career out of XYZ, or I want to reach this certain goal, but there's something where you are doing the thing and you're going to get where you need to be. So somebody needs to hear that message right now. It doesn't even have to be in a career sense. It could be you not lowering your expectations when it comes to relationships, for example. Maybe you have a criteria of like, this is what I want in a person, and someone told you, well, you're aiming too high here. That dream person you're talking about doesn't exist, so you're going to need to lower your expectations if you want to be with someone. And you're kind of like, if they don't meet that criteria, I don't want them. I'd rather be alone. And that is the truth. And maybe eventually, you manifest this person who everyone told you wasn't real or wouldn't show up for you the way you wanted. For some of you, it could even be like an ex who wanted to make you believe that there weren't good people out there so that you'd settle for them and their shoddy behavior. But you were like, nope, I'm holding out for this person or this thing, this dream that's right for me, and I'm not going to stop until I get it. And people aren't going to be able to forget that you stuck to your guns and you aimed high and you got the desired outcome. Jupiter is the energy of abundance and expansion. Some of you, it might be worth looking at where Jupiter falls in your chart to help you with this particular dream or goal, if that applies. With the imagery on these cards as well, some of you have a sense of style that is unforgettable. It's something that I'm getting. Some of you could have a certain quirk when it comes to how you style yourself, or you have a standout feature that people tend to remember when they meet you. Some of you could dress in really bright colours, kind of like this, or maybe have certain items that are maybe a little bit hippie-ish or kind of psychedelic in terms of patterns and things like that. Some of you could even sort of wear things that are a bit mismatched from a conventional fashion perspective, like they shouldn't work, but somehow you manage to pull the look together and make it look aesthetically pleasing. People could even say to you, like, I love your sense of style, you know, I'd really love to wear XYZ, but I don't think I could make it work like you. They can't quite replicate or figure out how you make it all come together, but it just looks very harmonious on you. It could even be that people have a fleeting encounter with you, and even if they don't speak to you directly, like even if they're just passing you on the street, it's like they might not remember everything about you, but they'll remember one thing about you that stands out in a certain way. So, for example, let's say you committed a crime and the police are appealing for witnesses. Not that you would, but let's say that you did. The police could ask these witnesses, like, you know, what did the perpetrator look like? And the witnesses are like, well, I didn't see Pal 1 properly, but I remember that they were wearing this bold red lipstick, or they had these really cool shoes, or I didn't see their face, but they had the juiciest ass, something like that to do with one of your features or a way you style yourself. Sorry about the example, that's just what came through. This Three of Cups is interesting because when I pulled this out initially, it kind of flipped out horizontally. And when that happens, I sometimes don't know whether to take it upright or in reverse, especially when it's like the first card that I take and I don't really know what the overall energy is going to come out like. But I honestly think that it's kind of both, because I think a lot of people have heard a lot of stories about you, Pal 1, and I'm not saying those stories are all 100% good, but I'm saying you show people an unforgettable time to the point where years later they're still telling those stories about you. And I think oftentimes these are good stories, these are funny stories. They might be about a time where you just came out with something hilarious and kind of out of pocket, and you had the whole room in stitches at what you said. Particularly, I think your friends, like no matter how big or small your circle is, your friends have so many little anecdotes about you, things you and them have gotten up to in the past, your wild adventures and stories, these goofy, funny moments that you and them share. I think people never forget how much fun they've had with you and the liveliness you bring to any event. There are probably times when you've been curled up on the floor crying, laughing with your friends and loved ones, and those times are so unforgettable for them. I'm also getting that there have also been times where you being unfiltered has almost landed you in it or got you in trouble in some way. And they could be like, do you remember the time Pal 1 said this? Or do you remember the time Pal 1 almost got us kicked out of this place because they did this? Or do you remember the time Pal 1 got us in detention at school because of this? With this Temperance in reverse and with this Fool, for maybe just one or two of you, one of these stories could be in relation to you, like, and maybe being clumsy or even falling over. I know that won't apply for everyone, I know that's quite specific, but some of you are maybe a little bit unbalanced or uncoordinated at times, or you put your foot somewhere it's not supposed to be. Of course, this doesn't have to be physically, it could be in more of a metaphorical way in terms of the things you say, but if it's this physical lack of balance, one example I'm getting could be like you and your friend went and got drunk as teenagers, and maybe you went back to your friend's house and you were both supposed to be acting sober and pretending you weren't drunk in front of their parents, but then you're super wobbly on your feet and you trip and you do something that kind of blows your cover. It's that kind of thing. It's like silly little things. If anything like that has ever happened, I think that's something that your friend or whoever this is looks back on fondly, and it's like a funny moment now that you've grown up or whatever. You have this vibe where your friends or people who love you are kind of like, I can't take you anywhere, Pal 1, but it's in the best way. Like, they find it really endearing because they know that if they do take you somewhere, you're going to have so much fun, but you're probably going to get them in trouble, or something is going to be taken to extremes or to excess. This won't apply to everyone, but if you're someone who drinks or did drink in the past, it could have felt like at certain points in the past, you were the kind of person who you'd say to your friend, like, oh, let's just go for one drink. And your friend would be like, uh-oh, I know you're going to get me in trouble because I know it's not just going to be one drink. And then you and them would have the best time, but you'd end up staying out until 4 a.m. or something like that. It doesn't have to be that thing specifically, but you have this energy of kind of like go big or go home. like, again, let's have a deep conversation or don't talk to me at all. It's kind of like all or nothing. And there could be this sense of your friends love your honesty and authenticity, but they almost get a little bit scared to take you places because they know what you're like. But they also take you to places anyway because they want to see what you'll say or what you'll do because they know that you're not holding back, essentially. So, as one example, someone could take you to their family event as like a plus one, and they might say to you, like, oh, just to warn you, I have this uncle who is kind of old school. Some of his views are a little bit backwards, just try to ignore him. Like, don't get into it with him. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to get into it with him. Like, if he says anything to me, I'm not going to let him get away with it. I'm going to tell it how it is. And they kind of know this about you. They know if they tell you don't start, you're going to start. And they kind of love this because you say all the things that they want to say but feel like they can't. So maybe you go to this event and this uncle goes on like some racist or sexist or homophobic tangent. And most people are like, oh, he's old, just ignore him. But you're the one who's like, no, that's not okay. And you go and put the old guy in his place and you rile him up to the point where he needs to like increase his blood pressure medication. And afterwards, your friend is like, so listen, you're not going to be allowed back to any family functions, but also what you said was amazing and somebody needed to say it. So it's like you land yourself in a little bit of hot water, but honestly, you don't care because it needed to happen. Like somebody needed to say it, but nobody can tell you what to do or to say. Nobody can tell you to quieten down or to modify your behavior to make others more comfortable. It's like you're not going to just take the easiest option for a peaceful life. You're okay with a little bit of discord or chaos if it's for the greater good. You're okay with clashing with people. And it's not that you want to clash with them, but you're kind of prepared to like let the chips fall where they may. That's something people remember about you when they meet you. Some of you have been working on thinking a little bit more before you speak or you take action while still maintaining that sense of authenticity. Because obviously, there is zero wrong with honesty and with directness. However, for just a couple of you, because you have a tendency to jump into things feet first, that could have led you to jumping to conclusions. So, for someone in particular here, and this won't apply to everyone, but it's like maybe someone in your life remembers an incident where you were a little bit reckless or a little hasty, and it nearly got someone into trouble or it nearly ruined a friendship or relationship. And it won't be this exact example, but one example I'm getting is like, let's say you saw text messages between your romantic partner and your best friend, and you see a text message about the two of them meeting up behind your back. And you're like, oh my God, my partner is cheating on me with my best friend. And you're already packing your partner's bags, you've got their suitcases ready, you're waiting at the door, and when they step in, you're giving them what for, and you're like, if you two want to be together so bad, you just go and be together because I'm done with you. And they're like, whoa, pal one, no, we're not having an affair. I was with your best friend because they were helping me choose an engagement ring for you. It's something like that where you like fly off the handle too quick and you end up ruining the surprise. And in the moment, it's not funny, but later you and the people involved can kind of laugh about it, or you can be like, remember when you ruined your own engagement surprise by thinking that we were having an affair, or something like that. So there are certain moments like that that you now reflect on, and you can understand when it's appropriate to rein in your temper or hot-headedness. Maybe now you tend to think a little bit more, but you've not lost any of that ability to be like that straight shooter when it's needed. I'm getting that some of you aren't the best drivers. I'm sorry, that won't be for everyone. Now, for me personally, I'm not judging you because I could not drive if my life depended on it. But some of you, like maybe when you were a new driver or you just passed your test, you had a couple of smaller accidents or crashes or near misses. So maybe someone remembers that you were once a little bit of a reckless driver, and it's like now they can laugh and say, hey, pal one, remember that time you almost drove us both off a cliff? Like, it's an amusing anecdote now, but it wasn't funny at the time. It's something like that. Again, that won't be for everyone, but there's definitely something about being a little bit chaotic or hasty or reckless, like acting now and thinking later. And a lot of you, it's because you have this truly free spirited, adventurous nature, and people remember that about you. They know they're always going to have the best time with you and have such a lot of fun. But sometimes they're like, whoa, slow down. I mean, some of you could be like fast drivers or fast talkers, or you're always going from one topic to the next and it's hard to keep up with you. Now, this next message again won't be for everyone, but I'm getting that some of you are the subject of gossip and you haven't been forgotten due to something you did because a specific person is holding on to resentment because of it. So for some of you, I'm hearing that it's like certain people want to try and blame you for exposing the truth. I know that could apply to so many different things. But one example that I'm getting, and I think I'm using this example because it goes back to what we said about you kind of sometimes landing yourself in it. And it's not that you're being oblivious, but I think sometimes you kind of do things for the plot and you don't realize the impact you've left. You're just kind of like, oh, well, I was having fun. I didn't really think about the consequences. Because I think it's like, it's not your responsibility to moderate anyone else's behavior. You're just kind of doing you. So, one example could be like you get invited to a party with your friend, and maybe you start talking to someone and you're flirting and you're vibing, just getting kind of caught up in the moment, and they tell you that they're single, so you end up kissing or something like that. Then maybe you have someone marching over to you, like, "What are you doing? That is my boyfriend or that is my girlfriend." And you're like, "Well, I didn't know. They told me that they were single." So you're like, "Oops," like you're shrugging. And maybe this person is wanting to blame you, and you're just like, "Well, I'm sorry, but now you know what this person's really like if they're trying to kiss me and they're in the same room as their boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, how is that my fault?" And you just come away from that situation kind of unaffected. And you're like, well, that was a learning experience. Off I go on to the next adventure. Maybe you're just like, I'm just going to go to a different bar and avoid this drama. Like, I'm just going to get some food and go home. And you go home, you pass out, you forget about it. But maybe the next day, someone is like, "Pal one, you have no idea how much drama you caused. Like, this couple got into this huge fight after you left, and the party ended up getting shut down," or whatever. Again, it doesn't have to be that example, but in that situation, you've exposed the truth about someone. But sometimes you get blamed for that because people want to remain ignorant to that truth. So maybe you have this person who tried to confront you, sort of gunning for you or stewing because they're like, that person went after my man or my woman. And you're just like, "I was literally just trying to have a good time and I felt like kissing someone. It's not that deep." So there's this undeserved stigma attached to you that you've like ruined a relationship, but it's not actually you ruining it, it's the other person that ruined it. You just happen to expose the truth about it. So sometimes it appears like you've caused the drama when actually you haven't. You're just trying to live your life and seize your opportunities as they come. People sometimes try to shame you for it, but it's not something you should feel ashamed of. I'm also getting that sense of, again, there's something unattainable about you. I'm getting that repeated message of like, you're the one that get away or you're not prepared to be tied down. Something unforgettable about you is you might be somewhat of an oversharer, but at the same time, you simultaneously manage to reveal nothing about yourself. I know that sounds weird, but it's like because you're open to having these deep conversations, it could feel like when people encounter you, what you have to say leaves this lasting impact on them, and they remember what you said when it came to a specific experience that you had. And just a little bit of a trigger warning here, let's say you're talking about mental health issues as one example. Like if you struggled in the past, you could be very open about that. So somebody you've spoken to could know that you tried to unalive yourself when you were 15, and what you said about that really stuck with them in this intense and profound way. But at the same time, like they could know about that, but they might not know what you do for a living or what your hobbies are or who you live with. It's like you have this way of skipping past these small stuff and getting right to the nitty gritty. So people are like, "I know all this about Par One whilst not really knowing anything." It's this weird contradiction. It's like you can meet someone once and have this really raw, authentic conversation about your childhood trauma, and then they just never see you again, but something you've said just really sticks with them. It's very much giving like a girl's bathroom best friend kind of vibe. And if you don't know what I mean, if you're a woman and you've ever encountered another woman who is a stranger in the girl's bathroom on a night out, you might have had that experience of like, "I just met this person, but we've just poured our hearts out to each other, and now they're crying on my shoulder, and I'm telling them to dump their boyfriend, and we're complimenting each other, and now we're taking selfies together, and we're adding each other on Instagram, even though we're probably never ever going to talk again." It's like, even though people might have those brief moments with you, there's something intense about the bond or the conversation there. It's like people meet you and remember you because you feel like you're a soul sister or brother, even if they don't really know a lot about you. Sometimes people could get upset that they do have this connection with you and they find out that you're not single or you're not looking for a relationship or something like that, because with this Nine of Cups reversed, it's something about shattered dreams. So this could be like people saying to you, "You're my wish fulfillment, pal one." And you're kind of like, "Well, you're not mine." And you have to let them down gently because you want to be free. You're definitely hard to pin down. It's hard to keep you in one place, is something I keep hearing. And again, I think it's because you don't want to settle for less. And some people have maybe tried to make you feel ashamed for having standards, but I really do think something they're not going to be able to forget is that when these manifestations come in, people are going to remember that this happened for you because you weren't afraid to dream big or to strive for more. And it's interesting as well, like the more you mature, the more you're going to be able to harness more of the ability to think before taking action. And I don't think you're going to lose that raw, unfiltered passion that you have. I think there's always going to be that side of you that's a little bit, I want to say feral, like and untamed. But it feels like the older and wiser you get, it's like that energy is going to be channeled into things that are going to benefit you more favorably. And maybe you're going to be wasting less time on engaging with things that don't matter because it seems like you're building something memorable right now. Whether it's a business or you're just working on yourself with all this Pentacles energy showing up here, it's like you have this unwavering belief that you are going to get to where you need to be. You know that if you just keep working hard at something, you're going to be rewarded. There are things that you're nurturing or cultivating right now that are going to get you to these really high places. And it seems like you're dedicated to doing the best job possible and really committing to a certain path, working towards a certain accomplishment where you are going to be recognized and appreciated for your talents. And the reason I say it could be business related is because for many of you, this might be something that ends up making you money. If it's not that, it could just be the sense of like eventually you'll be remembered for how far you've come. Like maybe certain people told you it was impossible, or they encouraged you to give up, or they said, that's not going to work. But you had this inner knowing that if you just stuck to your guns, something would work out. So you're doing that thing, you're proving them wrong, and you're going to be remembered for like, look at where Pal 1 was and look at where they've ended up now. It's that sort of energy. For some of you, it's this big business idea, and for others of you, it could just be something physical, like changing your body or sticking to a particular fitness goal. These specifics don't matter, but people are going to remember all the work you've put into this thing and that you never gave up on yourself. So that is what I'm getting about why you are unforgettable, Pal 1. Now, next, we are going to be asking who won't ever or can't ever forget you. So if you don't want to hear about a specific person or a specific group of people and you were just here for the what makes you unforgettable part, again, that is absolutely fine. I love having you here in any capacity, so thank you for being here and I will hopefully see you in the next one. But if you're sticking around because you want to know who this is or you're curious, we are about to get started on the who. So this could be anyone. It could be a romantic situation, a platonic situation, someone from your past, someone you're currently dealing with. I don't know. All I know is it's someone who cannot forget you and someone whose head you are living in rent-free. And like I said, this could be about more than one person, maybe a number of people can't forget you, but we're going to be focusing on the strongest energies coming through today. So let's see who is coming through and how you might know this person. Okay, so we have got the Ten of Swords in reverse. We've got the Devil. We've got the Six of Pentacles. We've got the Two of Swords. We've got the Star reversed. We've got the Queen of Cups reversed. We've got the Two of Cups reversed. And we've got the Ten of Pentacles reversed. Okay, this message won't be for everyone. Some of you, this is going to be someone from your past, and this will be a situation of, yeah, I know who this is, but I'm so done with that situation. But for others of you, this feels like more of an ongoing situation and you're struggling maybe to come to a decision about this individual. Maybe it's a decision about whether to distance yourself from them or cut them off entirely. This isn't something you're taking or have taken lightly because it feels like there's such a shared history with this person. And a part of you maybe feels like because of your history with them, you still owe them a certain degree of loyalty, even though they haven't necessarily always offered you the same in return. Maybe some of you feel like you're tied to this person or that you'd be giving up on them if you were to totally like cut things off. Even if honestly you have been overgiven with them in the past or you've given them the benefit of the doubt or, put up with more than what you should have put up with, it feels like some of you are at a crossroads here, and I guess it doesn't have to be ongoing. It could be like, this person is officially out of your life and you know it's for the best, but because you two share a lot of memories, for example, maybe you think of those and sometimes you're like, I wonder if we could ever be friends again or we could ever be together again or get along again. But then you're reminding yourself there's a reason that this ended or, that it needs to end if it hasn't. Because for a lot of you, quite honestly, I think a big part of it is you've outgrown this person and you're no longer compatible. And it feels like they've tried to hold you back or keep you small because of their own insecurities. So it's funny we kept mentioning throughout the oracle, like you might get people telling you you're dreaming too big and things like that, because this is exactly the kind of person who will be telling you some of those things to sort of like keep you down or not let you get too big for your boots. And I don't know what the exact nature of this relationship is. I think this relationship could take any form, to be quite honest. It could be an ex, it could be a friend, it could be a parental figure or family member, but this is someone who didn't want you to fully realize your potential. It's someone who kind of wanted to make you lose hope, or they wanted to make you focus on the negative, or they wanted you to accept breadcrumbs, particularly with that Six of Pentacles. And it's interesting, I don't normally get that message with the Six of Pentacles, but with the imagery here and the story these cards are telling all together, it's like this is a person who wanted you to just accept what they dished out, and they wanted you to think that there wasn't anything better out there for you. So whether this is an ex-romantic partner who tried to say, I'm the best you're going to get whilst doing the bare minimum, or if this was a friend or family member who discouraged you from pursuing your dreams because they never went after their own dreams and they're scared of your potential and what you could achieve, or even if this is a boss or a colleague who, like, when you complain about your job, this person is like, well, that's just the reality of having a job, you're not going to get better pay elsewhere. It's like they wanted you to accept your lot. They wanted you to believe that this is all there is, this is all you'll ever be, this is the best treatment you'll ever get. And that wasn't true. It feels like you've realized that wasn't true, and you've either terminated the relationship with this person, you went no contact, or you've not particularly listened to them. If you are still in communication with them and you want them in your life to some capacity, it's like you've been listening to them less and less, and you've ignored their advice, and you've gone out there to pursue your dreams or to search for better. Even if this person is still that kind of like tiny little voice in your ear telling you you're never going to get anywhere, even if they are still this negative influence in your life, you've sort of pushed what they have to say to one side, and you're like, I have to have belief in myself and what I deserve, so I have to go and do this anyway. And they hate that, because when you're out there adventuring, discovering the world, meeting other people, broadening your perspective, it means they're less able to control you or tame you or keep you small. They don't want you to see all those bright and amazing opportunities, because it's like they kind of want you to be on their level. Or I'm getting the phrase, they want you to roll around in the dirt with them. I'm getting that phrase, and I feel like that came through once before on one of my readings. So if you've listened to some of my other readings, it could be that same person for someone specific here. But it's like this is a person who you feel in some way has been holding you back, and maybe for a really long time too. And this is the kind of person who would say, like, well, I'm just being realistic, but they're actually being very pessimistic. They want to drag you down into their negative way of thinking. And maybe this is someone who you've realized that being around them is actually super draining, and you don't want to feel tied to this person because they steal a lot of your energy. But for some of you, maybe it feels like you have some kind of obligation to them. Maybe they are a family member, or you feel like in some way you have a responsibility for them. If you guys have that shared history, or you've known this person for a long time, you could feel like, oh, I have some kind of duty to speak to them or to look after them to some degree. But there's this feeling of like this person being beyond help. And I don't mean that this person is beyond help in the sense that they're not worth saving or they can't be better. But what I mean is that it is not your responsibility to save them. And the help that they might need might go beyond the resources that you have. Like this person could need professional help, but maybe in the past they've put a lot on you, or they've expected you to be their savior, or they've been quite needy. But nothing you do is ever enough for this person. Nothing you do can ever really save them, because they're not using their own agency or initiative. They're not doing the work, basically. This is the type of person who could have been very needy in the past and just relied on you way too much, to the point where they're always expecting you to be at their beck and call, like they're phoning you every single night about the same issues. But the one time that maybe you don't answer their 4 a.m. call because you're asleep or whatever, they're like, you're never there for me, or I could have ended up harming myself because you didn't answer my call. It's like they guilt trip you and make you feel like you're the bad person, but in actuality, they've expected way more of you than what is fair or reasonable. And the thing is the energy doesn't even feel reciprocated at all. So when they're going through a bad patch, they've expected you to be there for them 100% of the time. But when you're going through a tough time, you don't even put that pressure on them. Like, you don't even lean on them to the same extent. But if you did ever say, like, hey, I could really do with a phone call, are you available, or something like that, they, in that situation, would always make it about them. They're actually never there for you, or they're like, I can't right now, I have too much going on in my life to talk to you. But if you ever said that, they wouldn't like it, like if the shoe was on the other foot. They're kind of like, nobody understands how hard it is for me, but they're really self centered and don't realize that other people have things going on too. This is giving like very much main character syndrome. And it's like, if you dare to have a life outside of them, or if you dare to strive for better, they're like, I can't believe that you're abandoning me like this, or you don't appreciate me and what I've done for you. But they haven't actually done anything for you other than, try to hold you back and try to squash your dreams and stifle your growth. Some of them, it's like maybe you guys once were in alignment, or you were on the same page about things, but you've matured or you've grown up, you've changed your perspective. You're no longer interested in some of the same things that they're interested in. And they've in turn tried to make you feel like that's a betrayal. But really, you're just kind of like, well, I've changed, like I've evolved, and that's not a bad thing. And it's sad too, because maybe you've even given this person ample chances, but they're just not willing to even meet you part way. Like, as just one example, and it doesn't have to be this one, but let's just say you and this person used to go out and drink to excess. Maybe one day you were like, I've decided to not drink as much, or I've decided to be sober because that just feels better for you personally. It's not that you're making this person feel bad for drinking. You're not saying like, oh, drinking's evil, and you're not telling them that they can't drink. But maybe you've tried to set a boundary with them. Like you've said, hey, could we maybe try doing something together that doesn't revolve around drinking all the time? Because I often feel bad when I drink too much. And it's like this person wants to tempt you into crossing your own boundaries. They're putting that cup in your hand, like, come on, it's just one drink, because they want to make you feel bad about yourself, or they want to encourage your bad behavior so you can be just like them, or they feel on a level playing field with you. And that's not me saying like drinking is bad. You know, I drink myself, but I'm just using that as an example of whatever boundary you've set, they want to get you to cross it so that they're not the only one engaging with that behavior. So it's like you've given them the option of trying something new with you, but maybe they're like, I don't like this new version of you, pal one. Why are you so boring these days? Why aren't you drinking? You're never going to find friends that don't like to drink. That's unrealistic. Drinking is just what we do. And they don't want you to see that there's anything more to life outside of that. They're trying to keep you stuck in the same habits or in the same mindset of not fully believing in yourself or seeing your value. And yeah, it's kind of sad because maybe for some of you, this person once made you feel like it's you and them against the world, but actually it's secretly like they've become your biggest hater over time. For a couple of you, if you have online platforms, this could be in relation to an actual hater, like a troll, someone who comments on your socials or your videos just trying to get a reaction out of you because they see what you're doing and they want you to stop doing it because they're worried that if you keep doing what you're doing and showing your talent, eventually you're going to get big or you're going to go viral, and they don't want that. They don't want you to have that belief in yourself. They don't want you to keep going. They just want you to stop now so that you don't get the chance to shine because, you know, they could never get up there and do what you're doing. So now they've got to put you down for it because, you know, that's the only way that they can make themselves feel more secure in their inability to put themselves out there or work hard. And it's so sad because you're the kind of person where you want to hype others up or you want everyone to get their flowers, but some people in your life think that by you succeeding, it somehow makes them shine less. And so if they can't be in the spotlight, then neither can you. And it's such a shame because you could be the type of person who just totally wants to lift everyone else up. But instead of them allowing you to take their hand and pull them up onto the stage with you, instead they're trying to drag you back down. And it's just not fair. This could be somebody who is bad with money, or they've lost money, or they came from rocky foundations. Or maybe you and them have always had a rocky foundation in the time you've known them, like you've always had certain disputes or disagreements. This could be someone who has had family issues recently and maybe they're wanting you to let bygones be bygones and they want to come back into your life because things have fallen apart in theirs in some kind of way. It feels like there's been so many times where you've tried to give this person the benefit of the doubt, or you've tried not to rise to certain disagreements, or times they've tried to get a reaction out of you. Because maybe you and this person have been through certain similar struggles, you've survived things. For some of you, it could be like eating disorders or mental health struggles or addiction or difficult family situations, like you've overcome a lot in your life. And a part of you might have a soft spot for this person because they've dealt with some of the same stuff and you once, you know, maybe connected over that. But it does feel like this person has developed a bit of a victim complex and they've acted in a way that is unfair towards you because of this mentality that they're stuck in. And that's not me saying if you or this person have been a victim of something. It's not me like trying to invalidate that at all. But it does seem like on your end at least, you can say to yourself, I might have been a victim in this one situation, but I'm not going to let it stop me doing XYZ. And on the other hand, this person is sort of saying, you know, I was a victim of this one thing, and because of that, I can act however I want, and nothing is ever my fault. Obviously, they're not actually saying that, but that's kind of the mentality that they have. And if we use that drinking example, let's say you and this person both struggle with, you know, social anxiety as one example, and you rely on drinking as a bit of a crutch. If one night you drink too much, you might be like, well, I understand that that decision to drink a lot was influenced by my social anxiety. It's a reason, but ultimately I'm in control of making a decision to stop drinking and I'm going to try and do things differently in the future. Whereas this person would sort of abandon their sense of autonomy and they might say, well, what was I supposed to do? People just kept handing me drinks. I couldn't say no. So what if I threw up all over my friend's new couch because I drank too much? I'm not apologising. They need to understand that it's not my fault that I was drunk. Like, they don't hold themselves accountable for anything. They don't apologise. They don't see things from other people's perspectives. Everything is somebody else's fault, basically. And yes, we all make mistakes. I'm sure at one point or another we've all drank too much. It's not a big deal. But it's like this person makes no attempt to not make the same mistakes is the thing. You can't just say like, oh, I tried to sleep with your husband or your wife because I was drunk, but it's fine because I was drunk and it's not my fault, and expect there to be no repercussions. But this person, they kind of think that they can act however they want with no consequences, and it seems like you've grown out of their behaviour, or that's not a mentality that you choose to live by, and they struggle to accept that you've moved on or you've moved away from that. So if some of you are doubting whether it was the right decision to cut ties with this person or distance yourself, I think this is acknowledging, like, you can hold space for this person in the sense that you can, you know, wish them well, or you can pray for them and their growth, but you can't be the one to make them change or to come and fix all their problems or get them out of trouble. If they're insistent on making the same mistakes over and over again, there isn't anything you can do to change that. This person has to want to change. And for some of them, unfortunately, it seems like they do still have lessons to learn. And if you were to give them another chance, they might continue to be this way, or they will become worse as a means of trying to keep you down or trying to hold on to you too tightly. If you still love or care about this person to some degree, you don't have to say that everything about them is bad. You don't have to forget the memories you had, but you can acknowledge that you and this person are currently better apart than you are together, because there are things that they need to do independently. For some of you, you or this person, I know this is random, but you've even had like a near-death experience. I mean, maybe you both have at certain points. That could just be for one specific person, but this could be something you bonded over in the past. But whereas with you, this experience has maybe pushed you to do better or really value your life, for this person, they might use it as an excuse to feel sorry for themselves. And I think it gets you down that they think this way, especially when they try and project that onto you. But it's like you can't fix their attitude for them. Sometimes you do have to sort of focus on you and allow this person to make their own choices. And that's hard, especially if a part of you feels like, you'd be abandoning them or they're trying to make you feel that way. But if a part of taking care of them means abandoning a part of you, that's not fair on you. And you do have to honour that part of you that needs to be acknowledged as well. So that is what I'm getting for the tarot portion of your reading. I don't think I am going to finish with an oracle card, but I think I might just roll the astro dice for a little bit of confirmation regarding signs or houses significant to this pile. I just feel like ending the reading with a little bit more clarity for you. So these signs and houses don't have to resonate. It could just be a little bit of extra confirmation if they do. Truthfully, it just feels like this is the best time to roll the astro dice because I want you guys to see my new mat. So, okay, let's have a look. Pile 1. Okay, we have got Aquarius and we have got the second house. That's a Taurus house. So we've got second house and Aquarius. Let's roll again. We have got fourth house. That's Cancer. And we have got Libra. So we've got Libra and fourth house. And we have got Libra again and 12th house. So strong Libra coming through. I'm just going to roll one extra time to see if we can get another sign for you guys. Okay. We have got Virgo and we have got the 12th house again. So 12th house coming through strongly and Virgo. So those signs could be significant. Those houses could be significant in you or this person's chart. Specific dates relating to those months could be significant. Just take it as it resonates for you. But it doesn't have to resonate at all for this to be your pile. Okay, so that is where I am going to leave your reading today. I really, really hope you enjoyed this reading. If you did like the reading, please take a tiny little minute out of your day to like the video. Please leave me a comment if you get a chance. Just let me know what resonated, or if you're not comfortable doing that, please just let me know which pile you picked. I would appreciate that more than you could ever know. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. That is the best and easiest way to support me. I am slowly making my way to 1,000 subs, so if you could help me on that journey, that would be amazing. But if not, I'm grateful to have you here in whatever capacity. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, Pile 1 Collective. Hi Pile 2 Collective. If you chose Pile 2 and you chose the Good Karma Tarot and the Balloon Animal sticker, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. This reading is all about what makes you so unforgettable and who won't ever forget you. So if you would like a full breakdown regarding everything this reading will entail, please go ahead and check out the introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I'm not going to go into all of the disclaimers again, but I just want to briefly reiterate that these are collective readings. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. And as always, if you're finding that any part of this reading is becoming more harmful to you than it is helpful, please feel free to pick a different pile or give this one a miss. These readings are intended to uplift and empower, not to confuse you further. If you need to sit this one out, you are more than welcome to come back for a future reading. So we are about to get started by looking at your oracle cards. So I'm actually just going to move your tarot cards to one side for now so we can focus on these few oracle cards in front of us. Please feel free to use this portion of the reading as an overall energy or vibe check, and for confirmation you've chosen the right pile. Go in with an open mind, but don't force anything to fit if it just doesn't. Absolutely nothing bad will happen if you choose the wrong pile. All it means is that you get to go back and choose a different one. You are also very welcome to choose more than one pile if more than one pile is calling to you. So actually, before we look at your cards, I actually want to talk a little bit about this sticker in relation to your energy pile too. So this balloon animal makes me think about children's birthday parties, and it's making me think either something to do with children or something to do with entertainment could be significant to this pile in some way. Now, that could be that you're doing something working with children or you're training to do that. Could be that you're working in education or social services, or, maybe even if you're not a teacher or you're not directly working in a school, it could be that a part of your career involves going into schools and doing talks, or even doing something like one-on-one play therapy with special needs children or with vulnerable people. It's something along those lines. Or it could be that if it's not that, you're involved in the entertainment field in some way, or you're in the spotlight, you have some kind of platform where a number of eyes are on you. Obviously, if it's working with children, it could be like you have lots of little eyes on you, like a classroom full, but equally, this could be you putting some kind of content out there and having eyes on you in that way. Because I keep hearing the word showbiz and almost getting magician kind of vibes, and I don't know why. I think I'm just thinking of like a magician at a children's party making balloon animals and manipulating these shapes into whatever he or she wants them to be. And everybody is looking at this magician like, how did they do that? That could be some kind of commentary on you. You're unforgettable, maybe because certain people want to work out how you do what you do within a certain context. But yeah, if it's not the industry you work in or anything like that, there could be something about you having a really close relationship with one of the littles in your own life. If you have your own kids, you could be very protective of them, like you're a fierce mama or papa bear, and people don't forget this about you. Or even if you're like a favourite auntie or favourite uncle to a niece or nephew, it could be that there's something really special about the relationships with the children within your family. You kind of look after them, and so you're always on their mind in some way. It could also be something about your own inner child, or something about your childhood being a memorable experience, something is significant. Whether that's in a good or a bad way, there could be something you're carrying with you when it comes to that. If it's not kids, it could be to do with you having a special connection to animals, with this balloon animal being in the shape of a dog. Maybe for some of you guys, your dog looks at you like you're the literal love of their life, and when you're not at home, they're thinking about you constantly or something like that. For some of you, you might have a pet that recently crossed a rainbow bridge and is now on the other side, and this is a message that your pet hasn't forgotten about all the wonderful memories and that they're looking out for you. I know that's specific, but it feels like that's going to resonate with somebody here, especially those of you who had a very, very close bond with the animals in your life. Okay, so let's have a look at your actual oracle cards and we'll see what we pull for you. I'm just going to pop the sticker here. Okay, so we have Aries. Traits are passionate, motivated, confident, moody, impatient, impulsive. Dates are March 20th to April 18th. Element is fire. Ruling planet is Mars. Major arcana card is the Emperor. Stones are diamond and bloodstone. Colours are red and yellow. Lucky numbers are 6, 8, and 9. Flowers are honeysuckle and thistle. And we have got number 6, dragons, slay them all. And we have got number 43, tranquility, violet. Okay, this is a really, really interesting mix of energies. Firstly, as I say, whenever we look at these astrological cards specifically, you do not have to be an Aries for this to be your pile. This can be interpreted more as an archetype in terms of energy you are currently embodying. So even if you're not an Aries specifically, it could be the Aries traits or traits associated with that first house kind of energy are what makes you unforgettable. I just wanted to clarify that before we get started. Now, if you do happen to have prominent Aries placements or fire sign placements or first house placements, that's just extra confirmation that this is indeed your pile. Now, the reason I say this is interesting is because we have all of this fiery Mars energy coming through. Mars is associated with action and drive and aggression, but then we have this tranquility card over here, and I don't want to say that it's a contradiction so much as it's a representation of your dual nature. Some of you could have strong oppositional energies in your chart, by which I mean, like, you could be, as just one example, an Aries sun and a Libra moon, or a Libra sun with an Aries moon. It's like you have these two opposing forces, and maybe it's taken you a long time to find a way to harmonize these energies. Some of you could have been born on or around a full moon. That doesn't have to apply, but it's just an extra message for those of you where that does resonate. Some of you, when you were younger especially, could have dealt with a lot of pent-up rage or frustration, or feeling like you didn't have a healthy outlet to express yourself, and this is something you've had to work on as you have matured. There's something about like you channeling all your passion and energy to create some kind of unforgettable change here. A lot of you, it feels like, could be advocates for something, quite honestly. Like, you could be very vocal about causes you're passionate about. You could stand up for your rights or the rights of vulnerable people within society. You could work with marginalized communities. You could speak up about injustices within society that really anger you. There could be something unforgettable about the work you do in that way. It could also be in the form of therapeutic artwork or something like that. Maybe there's something about what you do or what you put out there that really speaks to people and it really moves them. You know, it's actually really interesting in both of the readings I've done so far. I'm getting a similar vibe of something unforgettable about you, being that you stand up and say what needs to be said, no matter the challenges, no matter how many metaphorical dragons you are required to slay. And I want to say there's really this vibe within the collective right now of rage, specifically feminine rage. And that is not gender specific. If you're a man listening to this, you might very well feel that rage too. You guys are our allies at the end of the day, and you probably have women in your life that you love and care about. So yeah, maybe you should be angry too. But there's definitely been this shift I felt in recent weeks and months, this powerful feeling of like, okay, it's time to fight, it's time to take action. What can we step up and do now? So if you're in that position of feeling that way due to whatever external circumstances are going on for you right now, I just want to say you're not the only one, because this energy is coming through so strongly. So you have many sisters and brothers feeling that alongside you. It's intense, it's powerful, and let me tell you, mountains can be moved with the amount of drive and this motivation to really step up and advocate for a different way of being. So like I say, there is a lot of overlap with pile 1, so if you were called to check out that pile, go ahead. Only if you were called to do so though, you don't have to. But what I want to say is it's almost like your energy pile 2, you feel like a slightly more mature version of pile 1. And I'm not saying that to compare and say like one pile is better than the other, but for some of you in this group, it could be like pile 1 was the younger version of you and pile 2 is you now, or who you're maturing into in the future, or something like that. Because pile 1's energy seemed like they were working on maybe thinking a little bit more before they act, or before they allow their emotions to get carried away with them. And for you, it kind of feels like you've mastered that. And quite honestly, that makes you all the more dangerous in the best way possible. Like, you are not for the weak, because you are like the calm before the storm. Your passion, your rage, it feels more controlled, it feels more contained, and that almost makes it 1,000% more powerful, because it means you're deciding when things are worth fighting for versus when they're not. And I don't want this in any way to sound like I'm shitting all over pile 1, because my pile 1s are also very intent on sticking up for what's right, and both of your energies are so important in terms of creating change in this world. But with you, there's just this sense of like, your attacks are more planned. I keep hearing that phrase. It's like you're more strategic, and I want to say like you know how to hit them where it hurts. I keep hearing that. So let's say, and this is just going to be one random example, it won't be this example for you specifically, but I'm just trying to illustrate what I mean. So let's say there's a company promoting themselves on social media or whatever, but you know this company are up to no good, like they're fraudulent, or they're scamming customers, or the products are unsafe or something like that. So both pile 1 and pile 2 are not going to want to let this company get away with behaving this way. They're both going to want to stand tall and speak out about it. But pile 1 might straight away, right off the bat, be very vocal about their experiences with this company. They might leave a scathing review or leave comments trying to warn people, and people take notice because it's very raw, it's very honest. People can tell pile 1 is very passionate about this. But their review might not be incredibly well thought out. So maybe like there's spelling mistakes and loads of exclamation points. No hating on exclamation points, by the way. I use exclamation points all the time. I'm just seeing a block of text in like all caps, like very excitable kind of energy. And with that, they've managed to inform a few people, but then the company block pile 1 for speaking out, or they take their comment down or whatever. So it still had an impact, but maybe it's not the impact that pile 1 really wanted, because they're like, you know, I should have maybe gone about this a little bit differently. Like I should have bided my time with this a little more. But with you, maybe a part of you wants to comment, but you're going to hold back and you are going to bide your time, because you don't just want to warn a few people away from this company, like you want to take the whole company down. You don't just want to slay the little baby dragons, you want to slay the big dragon. It's like you want the final boss. So your rage goes the distance, and you use your rage to fight in this smart and strategic way. That's the overall vibe I'm getting. It's like you use your rage and your passion and your drive, and you use it to fuel and create this more long-lasting change. A lot of you absolutely can't stand bullying of any kind, and similarly to pile 1, you might really root for the underdog. Some of you, you know, maybe that's why you have gravitated towards careers or working with marginalised communities or with vulnerable people, because you know that someone has to be there to give those people a voice. Some of you are incredibly protective of the vulnerable, or you don't play when it comes to people you love. Something unforgettable about you is that you can be calm, you can be pleasant, you can be diplomatic, but if somebody tries you, they're done. You will not be holding back, and whatever they try, they're not going to try it again. It seems like there are specific people who have never ever forgotten the time you had to put them in their place. There are people in your life who will never forget a time where you absolutely just went off, but it's not that you just fly off the handle unnecessarily, but people basically, like, I'm getting they shouldn't push you too far, because essentially they'll regret it if they do. So Aries, as in like the Greek god, is associated with war and violence, but I was reading that his Roman counterpart, Mars, has this very dignified demeanor, and that reminds me so much of your dual nature and your energy pal too, because on the surface, you could come across as very dignified, very cool, calm, and collected. You could be very polite and very well-mannered, very demure, but when people push you too hard, they are not going to forget what happens after that. That is a message that I keep getting. And again, like, it's not like you're just flying off the handle at everyone and anyone. It seems like, for the most part, you do aspire for a peaceful life. You want tranquility in your life and in your interpersonal relationships, but maybe you've learned the hard way that you can't just let people get away with whatever. You have to stand up for yourself, and you'll also be the voice for others when maybe they don't have enough courage to do that. So you could be that fierce advocate, and people don't forget the times you've stuck up for them. I think the people who you have loved throughout your life, whether it be people in your life right now or people no longer in your life, they haven't forgotten how big of a heart you actually have. You know, even the petals of violets are known for being heart-shaped. People don't forget the love you poured into them or the affection you gave them. They haven't forgotten how loyal you are or how much you truly care or how protected and safe they feel when they were around you. They also haven't forgotten that you're both a lover and a fighter. A lover as in like you have so much devotion and passion to give to others, but a fighter as in you've had to work incredibly hard and overcome some struggles in order to get to that place where you are able to give and receive love. Maybe you've had to really endure certain hardships or certain obstacles to get to the place you're in now. You've had to have courage to continue showing up every day. The people in your life who might know more about what you've been through in your past, whether it's in your childhood or in your adult life, they remember that you're so brave for overcoming some of the things that you have. With Aries being associated with the first house, the physical body is being highlighted here. I think people don't forget your presence. You don't have to have a physically intimidating body, but there's something about your energy that commands the attention of the room. People can feel when you're around. You're the type of person where it feels like you have tall person energy, even if you're actually super tiny and petite. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like you radiate BDE, if you know what that is. You have those kind of emperor vibes. You feel like a leader to people. Even if you're introverted and you don't feel comfortable taking on a leadership role, naturally, I am sensing that something memorable about you is to do with you stepping up and leading, whether this has been a part of your path yet or not. And as I always say, that's going to mean so many different things for different people. It doesn't have to be that you're stepping up and doing some big speech in front of an auditorium full of people. It could be you conducting online courses or being the head of your household and leading your family. But it's something like when people are around you, they remember you as someone who knows what they're doing and someone they should follow because you're probably going to lead them to success. This is so random, but you could have been that person in school where people always copied your homework. Even if you were like, why are you copying me? Like, I don't know what the answer is either. I don't know what I'm doing either. People just view you as someone who can lead the way. It could be like when you're working in some kind of group, people naturally defer to you or ask you for instructions. And even if you're like, you know, I don't know, like I'm not the group leader, people treat you as if you are. This is random as well, but it could also be like people coming up to you and, you know, asking you questions. Let's say you're in the supermarket or something like that. It could be like people come up to you and ask you like where a certain vegetable is, and you clearly don't work there. So you're like, I don't know, like I don't work here. But in any setting you're in, it's not because they think like you're wearing an outfit that looks the same as the people who work there. It's not like that. It's just like this person naturally seems like they know what they're doing. Even if you don't feel that way on the inside, this is something people remember about you. A lot of you could be entrepreneurs or you want to set up your own business, and this is something you'll be remembered for, creating something new and paving the way. This will not apply for everyone, but for some of you, you are remembered for your physical touch. Like people think that you give the best hugs, for example, or for some of you, maybe it's even something a little bit more spicy, like your past love interest remembered you as the best they ever had in bed, or maybe they just remember you as a really good kisser. With the physical body showing up here, a lot of people could remember your body, particularly romantic interest from the past. But I think even by strangers, again, it's that Mars energy. So a lot of people, you know, being attracted to you and desiring you in that very sensual way. I think you are very physically striking, and you definitely have a face and a body that people remember and that they think about. Some of you could be remembered as being competitive, not in the way of like comparing yourself to other people necessarily, but you could be remembered as somebody who likes to win, or somebody who has a lot of trophies or a lot of prizes, somebody who continually strives to be the best of the best when it comes to a specific endeavor. Aries is often referred to as the baby of the zodiac, with it being number one. And I'm getting this message for some of you of like, you are remembered as somebody who was kind of thrust into the world and had to grow up really fast or learn things the hard way. There's something about a lot of pressure or expectations being placed on you from an early age, and you having to be really quite independent. There's also something about you having to fight for the things you have, and you've had to fight to become the person you are, even. So maybe that's why you have such a drive to stick up for people now. Because maybe you never got to experience like a more easygoing childhood where you didn't have to worry about things. So again, it's this message of like, through the work you do, you might be healing your inner child. And by work, again, it could be actual work, but it could just be a hobby you're focusing on, or it could be in terms of the love you pour into your own family now. Whatever applies to you and your personal situation. But that is what I am getting for the oracle portion of your reading, pal two. I really, really hope you are enjoying the reading so far. If this is resonating for you so far, we are about to get started with the tarot. So I will see you at the tarot portion of your reading, pal two. Hi, pal two collective. Welcome back to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the first 8 cards that we pulled for you. So this is going to be an elaboration on what was discussed throughout the oracle. This is a deep dive on what makes you so unforgettable. So I might have to check that the cards are in frame after I've pulled them. So bear with me if they don't appear in frame right away. I will sort it out in a second. But here we have the Hierophant reversed. We have the 5 of Pentacles reversed. We have the Ace of Pentacles reversed. We have the Page of Cups reversed. We have Judgment. We have the Queen of Swords. We have the Page of Wands. And we have the Hermit. Okay, I've tried to get all of those in frame. So for your pile, I keep hearing this message of, I don't want them to go through what I did, or I don't want them to experience what I had to experience. And obviously that's going to mean so many different things to different people. I say that all the time, but there's this huge sense of you being remembered for taking some of these hard lessons that you've had to learn and creating powerful change with the knowledge that you've gained. And again, there's something about the next generations being highlighted here. So whether you work with children, or this is about your own children, or you're just helping society advance in some kind of way with the things you now know, it's like you're going to be remembered for really being that powerful voice of change in some kind of way here. And again, I keep getting this sense of you being this fierce protector and fighting for the people who need it most. And just so you know, pal two, fighting doesn't always have to look like you showing up to the battleground with your sword and in your armor ready to slay those dragons. Fighting can also be about fiercely loving our fellow humans and animals and the world with absolutely everything that we have. Because when we love each other, when we offer each other words of encouragement, when we find a way to connect with people, even those who are different to us, we are fighting the messages of fear that permeate our society. We are challenging the idea that it's us versus them in this world, and that is so, so important, because when we can connect like that, it allows us to band together and focus on slaying the real dragons. There's something about your words here being incredibly powerful. I think you are remembered for being an excellent motivator. Even if you ever comment on people's YouTube channels, I don't think you realize how those comments can stick with people and, really move them. I definitely want to hear a motivational pep talk from you in the comments, please, pal too. Only if you like the video. There's something about what you put out in the world being inspirational and leaving a lasting mark. So this could be just you using your words to give people the safe space that you didn't have growing up. And again, that can mean so many different things. But if you ever felt like you were left out in the cold growing up, or that you were the outsider, or you didn't experience the love and care you needed throughout your earlier years, and you had to do everything by yourself to become the person who you are now, it's like you're going to be remembered as somebody who gives other people the love that you didn't always get. And that is such a beautiful thing. And I do think that will also be a huge part of you healing your inner child as well. And it's interesting too to me, because for a lot of people who experience, difficult formative years and things like that, it can almost make them go the opposite way, in that they treat others very harshly because they were treated harshly. And there are many, many examples of this, and I'm sure you yourself can think of lots. But one I tend to see a lot that relates to like difficult family dynamics specifically, it's like I'll see a comment on some random reel about childhood trauma from a therapy account. It could just be saying something as simple as like, don't hit your children. And the comments make me so sad, because there will always be some comment that says something along the lines of, these new generations are just far too soft. My parents punched me in the face every single day and it didn't harm me. My parents kicked me out when I was 16 to go and find a job, and it meant that I had to work for what I have, and it taught me independence. I don't have to go and cry about it on the internet. And whilst I think it's good for people to have an outlet to voice their opinions, the fact that they felt the need to type that says to me that they have an inner child locked away somewhere who was never allowed to cry and who is screaming to be heard. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a psychologist. I'm literally just a tarot reader, so what do I know? But I just feel like, although I'm glad that these people have managed to take something positive from a difficult situation, and that's how they're looking at it, I also feel like they became who they were despite the harsh conditions they were faced with and not because of them. Like, you can be taught independence without being kicked out on the street. You can be taught how to be independent whilst also being loved and nurtured and shown endless compassion by your caregivers. The two are not mutually exclusive. To me, personally, I just think the world is already a harsh enough place without us having to make it even harsher for one another. You don't have to try to set people up for failure as a character building exercise. You can also teach them how to be strong through softness, through gentleness, because that too is a powerful strength. Love is the most powerful thing in the entire world. And when I say softness and gentleness, I don't mean if you're a parent, you have to like coddle your children, or you never say no to them, or you don't hold them accountable. I just mean you're not making your kids or whoever's lives 1,000 times harder than they need to be because you had to go through it, so do they. Because let's face it, every single generation, I know we like to sit and argue about who has it harder, but every single generation has their own unique set of challenges. And so it's redundant to just turn around and say, I'm going to make this person's life harder because mine was hard. And you're so not that person. The thing about you is you're compassionate and fearless. You're soft and you're strong. And that's how people remember you. You're being that person who is a source of light to the people who need it most in this world. It's like you want to become that person who you needed as a child. And this can be in big ways or it can be in small ways. It could be that you've dedicated your entire career to this work, but equally, it could be something as simple as you leaving a kind hearted comment on somebody's video. But whatever the case may be, this is something you are remembered for, and people find you incredibly inspiring. Let's face it, we really don't need more people in this world being cruel or judgmental or uncompromising. We have more than enough of that, I think. What we truly need is more people advocating for those most vulnerable in society. We need more people offering support and compassion and healing. That is what we're short of. And I don't think it's because there are less good people in the world than there are bad people. I think often it's just because the loudest voices tend to attract the most attention, and sometimes what we hear about tends to be more of that negative stuff. But there are so many healers and light workers out there who are doing important work behind the scenes, and maybe there are some aspiring healers and light workers who are getting the courage to start their own work. And it's like you are a source of inspiration for those people too, with whatever it is you're doing. You will be remembered for being a source of light in this world. And I'm also hearing that you're going to be remembered for being on the right side of history, for doing what you thought is right, but it's something progressive with that Hierophant in reverse showing up. It could be something unconventional even, because some of you are saying like, fuck tradition. We've been following some dumb tradition for too long, and where has it gotten us? It's time for something new. It's time to shake up this system. And that's not me crapping on all traditions or on people's cultures. I appreciate that there are certain traditions that have their place and not all of them are bad. In fact, some of them we can use as a building block and we can adapt some parts of that tradition to our more modern way of living. There's wisdom in a lot of past ideologies, but I will say there are certain beliefs rooted in tradition that are perpetuating harm on a large scale, and those traditions respectfully need to fuck all the way off. And that's what it feels like you are advocating for here. But it's not just telling that tradition to fuck off, it's also developing a more nuanced perspective and a deeper understanding of why things are the way they are, but also how they could be different and how we can make further advancements. I think there's some kind of acknowledgement with you where you're saying, like, if you'd have had someone like you growing up, or when you were going through this difficult time, at whatever point in your life that was, then you would have started something sooner and you could have been further along right now. And honestly, you're doing some important and powerful work, and the fact that you've had the courage and strength to do this at all is mind blowing. But I think for you, there's some sense of like, I'm going to step up and be this person for other people, because if I can be a source of light for them, then maybe they won't hit all the snags that I hit, because they'll know that someone has their back and they can progress even further so that we can progress more as a collective. You're not in competition with other people in that sense. You're like, yes, I want you to do more of this light work. I want you to do more of the things that I couldn't do or that I've only just had the opportunity to start doing. Because some of you, it feels like you've had to like play catch up because you were forced into survival mode for such a long time. I think we might have said in the Oracle, some of you have been like hyper independent for a long time. And it doesn't have to be in your childhood specifically. For many of you, it will be like you didn't have that caring adult to rely on for material or emotional support. So you have to stand on your own 2 feet from a very early age. Maybe you were even parentified, or you had to be the adult for younger siblings, or maybe you were expected to like go out and make money, like get a job super young so you could provide for the family because somebody else couldn't. And maybe that meant if you had goals, like going and getting an education or going traveling or just doing whatever else you wanted to do, that had to be put on the back burner because you were just so focused on keeping yourself and potentially even other people alive. If it's not your childhood, that could very well have happened in your adulthood, or maybe both for some of you. You could have separated from someone or been left out in the cold with no financial resources, like having to fend for yourself. Some of you could even be single parents, and it's as though you poured all your love into looking after your children, or maybe some of you had to take care of other family members' children, and it's like all of your energy went into just keeping everyone afloat. But essentially, whatever your specific situation may be, there's this sense of like you came from nothing and you've given yourself everything, or you're going to be giving yourself everything. But instead of being stingy and being like, well, I had to sacrifice everything to get where I am, so you have to do the same, you're using your compassion that you've learned to have for yourself and you're giving that to other people in similar situations, even if it's in terms of giving people advice and being like, look, I've been there, I know what it's like, just know that you can do this, you've got this. Even something as simple as that, whatever it is, you didn't have anyone to tell you that when you were struggling, and you don't ever want anyone to feel alone like you did at certain points throughout your life. So you're going to be remembered as somebody who was that voice of empowerment when people needed it the very most. If you came from any kind of impoverished area or anything like that, you could be remembered as somebody from that area who like built a name for yourself or built a legacy. You were given few opportunities, but despite that, you beat the odds or you beat the obstacles and created a successful life for yourself. The people who know your story or your lore see you as someone who has overcome adversity. In the past, you could have definitely felt like you were on the outskirts of society yourself, like you've been marginalized in some way, and you weren't necessarily given a fertile environment to grow and thrive. But despite that, you've independently created a life for yourself. You've fought through some of those challenges. So this could be any number of things, but to give a few examples, this could be like you were the only person of a different race within the place you resided growing up and you experienced racism. So now you speak out against that and you let other people experiencing that know that it's not okay for them to be treated that way. It could be that you're LGBTQ plus and you grew up being told it was wrong to be that way, or your caregivers didn't approve and you were like kicked out or something. So maybe now you advocate for other LGBTQ plus people in similar circumstances. Or it could be that you had a disability or mental health struggles and you were kind of made to believe that your struggles defined you or you would never amount to anything because maybe a teacher you had when you were younger didn't recognize that you were struggling and just labeled you as lazy or tried to make out like you weren't trying. And you've proved that teacher wrong, and maybe now you're a teacher yourself who works hard to recognize when your pupils are going through something like that. Or you work hard to make sure that caregivers can recognize these signs when it comes to a child going through some of these issues. It doesn't have to be those exact examples, but it's something along those lines. I actually feel a really strong connection to this pile. And this is a little bit heavy, so trigger warning for mental health stuff here. But it feels like there have been times in your life when you didn't think that you would be here today. Maybe a lot of your rage that you had bottled up, all this emotion and that feeling of injustice, maybe manifested in the form of you hurting yourself, or even in some instances, with us getting that first house energy, it could have manifested as hyperfixation on your body or diet, possibly ED. There's something about you trying to maintain control via how much or little you consume. This could also have been a response to a time when your physical body or boundaries were violated in some way, and that's all I'll say. I'm going to try to not go into detail on that, but you'll know if that's for you. It's not going to be for everyone, but that's something you could have experienced when you were young. And now it's like you work to educate people, you work to inform people, you work to offer people a safe space and make sure that, if they're going through anything like any of the things we mentioned above or whatever else it is that you dealt with in the past, they have a person who is on their side and who is fighting for them. A lot of you maybe spent a lot of time distancing yourself from your body or struggling in the relationship you had with your body due to these things. And maybe now you're known as someone who has worked hard to re-solidify that relationship and get back in touch with your physical self. This could be via some form of exercise and fitness and, like really improving your health. Like as one example, if at one point in your life you were in a treatment center for ED and you didn't ever think you were going to get better, maybe you were once so focused on keeping yourself smaller and now your focus is on making yourself stronger or advocating for body positivity or intuitive eating, something like that. A lot of you have really worked on improving your physical and mental health, and I tend to find as well with a lot of first house dominant people, and I say that as someone who isn't an Aries but I have a first house stellium, a lot of us will deep dive into self-help and psychology and personality tests, astrology, tarot. A lot of us are forever on this quest to understand more about ourselves because maybe we didn't always feel understood, and we want to try and gain knowledge about the many different facets of humanity so that we can continue to connect with people and so that maybe other people won't feel the way we did. So a lot of you are known as individuals who have really gone inwards and done a lot of healing work. You're remembered, or you will be remembered if we are talking future tense, as someone who has made huge changes in your life. How you start out is not at all where you end up. You're known as someone who is continually introspecting and trying to do better. You're also remembered as somebody who is willing to burn everything to the ground and start again. This could apply if you have left a relationship or a home, or you left your hometown. It's like when people encounter you again, you're this new person, or it's clear that you've done a lot of inner work or you've had some kind of awakening. You could be known as somebody who encourages others to embark on their own spiritual awakening in some way. You inspire others to view things from different perspectives. And this might be kind of specific, but for those of you where that message about your physical boundaries being crossed applies and you are a survivor of that kind of experience, it could be that at the time this happened to you, you weren't able to fully process what had happened to you. And so this led to the repressed rage, or it potentially led to you behaving in ways as a coping mechanism. It could also be that for a long time you repressed your physical desires, or you felt out of alignment or alienated from your own body. And this could manifest in the form of staying away from any kind of intimacy entirely, or it could be in the form of using intimacy as a release for some of this pent up anger, like a hyper libido or something like that. And so, for those of you where that applies and you advocate for other survivors of a similar thing, it feels like you're known as someone who has made breakthroughs when it comes to educating people on how everyone experiences that kind of trauma differently. And just to reiterate, as I always say on my channel, I don't think there's anything wrong with anyone having as much or as little intimacy as they like, as long as everyone is a consenting adult. Do what you want. But I think sometimes promiscuity, I'm using quotes for that, is demonized and viewed as a moral failing, particularly in women, when sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that behavior is a coping mechanism. It's a reaction to a time when that individual maybe felt out of control, and it's a physical manifestation of a deeper emotional issue. And the same applies for men, although, as we know, that behaviour is often praised rather than criticised because society. And that's a whole other problem, because men are being rewarded for engaging in behaviour that is just as harmful for them. And again, it's not about how much smecks you have or how little smecks you have. That doesn't matter. It's more about the reason you're doing it. If you're doing it because you just want to and you're in the mood and everyone's on the same page, all good. If you're doing it, on the other hand, because it's more of an addictive coping mechanism, or as a source of external validation, or to fill an emotional void, or because it feels like the one thing you can control, no shame, but maybe it is time to sit with that. So that could be something that you have been through and you have overcome, and you could talk about this openly. I know that's just going to be a very specific message. There could be some kind of message in there for you that you've learned more about your own body, or you've reconnected with your body and your emotions, and you're remembered as someone who has learned healthy outlets and also maybe educates others on all the ways that these kinds of things can manifest. You could have gone through moments where you were, I don't want to say obsessed with your image, but maybe there was some sense of you not seeing your value in your natural features, or you wanted to perfectly curate your image. Like maybe in the past you edited pictures, or you refused to be photographed altogether, or you said to your friends, like, don't put up that picture of me, because you felt like you would be less valuable if you were seen in this certain light. But now it's like you're known as somebody who has become comfortable in their own skin. You're remembered as somebody who has come such a long way in terms of developing your confidence. A lot of you could be remembered as somebody people were jealous of, maybe due to your looks or due to your strong presence. You could have experienced bullying and vindictiveness from people, getting intimidated by your strong presence or by how attractive you are, and you've had to overcome that and step into your power anyway. You're unforgettable because you're known as someone who has been to the school of hard knocks and you've come out alive. You're here to tell the tale candidly and honestly, and people are interested in what you have to communicate when it comes to this. You're known as a fierce protector and defender, and people remember the times you stuck up for them or the times you came to their defense. You're remembered as somebody who, I wanted to say, always comes with good tidings. I don't know why I wanted to use that phrase, but there's something where people see your name or your username pop up on their phone and they're happy to hear from you. They always feel like you give them good news or that you're cheerful. Maybe you remind people to keep going by just telling them that you're there for them. You're remembered as somebody who is capable of remaining optimistic even throughout hardships. People won't ever forget the times you stuck your neck out for them or you listened to them. And you're also remembered as this free thinker and somebody who is super open-minded in terms of actively wanting to create change and advocate for the betterment of the world. So next, pal 2, we're going to be asking who won't ever or can't ever forget you. So if you don't want to hear about a specific person or a specific group of people and you were just here for the what makes you unforgettable part, that is absolutely fine. I love having you here in any capacity. So thank you for being here, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. But if you're sticking around because you want to know who this is or you're curious, we are about to get started with the who. So this could be anyone. It could be a romantic situation, a platonic situation, someone from your past, someone you're currently dealing with. I don't know. All I know is it's someone who cannot forget you and someone whose head you are living in rent-free. And like I said, this could be about more than one person. Maybe a number of people can't forget you, but we're going to be focusing on the strongest energies coming through today. So let's see who's coming through and how you might know this person. Okay, so we have got the High Priestess. Interesting. We've got the Sun. We've got the Two of Cups. We've got the Five of Cups reversed. We've got the Seven of Cups reversed. We've got the Eight of Pentacles reversed. We've got the Chariot reversed. And we've got the Three of Swords. Okay, pile 2. You know this person can't forget you with this High Priestess. You can feel it. Maybe you can sense them pulling on your energy at times, but it feels like you've moved on from this, you're done with it. It actually feels like this is a situation you have had to heal from, though. You've had to release a lot of emotions when it comes to this person or situation. You've probably done your crying and your rotting and you're over that, or you've channeled your rage into these other outlets to process this and to get through this. Sometimes you might have a kind of unexplained emotion out of nowhere, and maybe you can sense that it's this person trying to pull on your energy or something like that. Whatever the nature of this relationship is, it feels like leaving the situation has allowed you to reconnect with yourself or rediscover part of your identity or nurture your inner child. Perhaps when you were in communication with this person, it felt in part like you were abandoning a part of yourself. And I don't know why I'm getting this, because the Two of Cups is a really, really positive card, but just with the imagery on this card and with some of these other cards we're getting, this is making me think like codependent relationship maybe, and that doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could have been like a friendship you've had in the past. And this picture is making me think of the Charlie XCX lyric from the song Apple, which coincidentally, I was listening to that song a lot when it came out, but I haven't listened to it in weeks. And then randomly, it came on my playlist last night. But the bit where she says something like, I've been looking at you so long now, I only see me. I don't know why that keeps repeating in my mind. And it's making me get this sense of like you and this person merging identities to the point where you didn't even know what was you and what was them anymore. So when this situation ended, maybe it felt initially like losing a limb or losing a part of you, and there was this immense grieving process that you had to go through, but ultimately, maybe now you can see that something had to happen in order for you to be able to fully shine or stand in your light here. And if it's not that, this could also indicate, I don't want to say like a love bomb relationship, but for some of you it could be, because there's kind of this sense of like once you and this person felt like you were one soul in two bodies essentially, or at one point you were so on the same page, or you really looked up to this person, or you thought the sun shone out of them, or maybe they made you feel like the sun shone out of you for a period of time, or like you were the center of their world. And then things went bad, things started to derail with this Chariot in reverse, and all the intense lovey-dovey feelings maybe quickly turned into something toxic, or something that felt like parts of your identity were being consumed or being shamed. This could have been someone who at first complimented you on all the things that make you unique and special, but then maybe over time this person kind of used those very same things against you, or they tried to erode your self-worth by making you think that the way you are isn't lovable. Like, I don't know, as one example, let's say you're an advocate for something. This is the kind of person who could have started off by finding some of the advocacy work you do and saying, it's so amazing that you speak out about XYZ. I admire what you do. I love your confidence. I'm on the same page as you. I have these beliefs too. But then over time, maybe those same things they admired, they started to resent. Like they say to you, oh, you're talking about that again? I swear you never shut up about that. Or, you tell them you're going to this advocacy fundraiser or whatever, and this person is like, oh, you're going to another one of those instead of spending some time with me. And they made you feel bad for all the things that they once said that they liked about you. But it was maybe quite insidious in the way that this behavior sort of crept up and changed over time. And it doesn't even have to be like that specific example. It could be anything, maybe even in terms of how you dress. Like if this is a past romantic partner, maybe they were initially attracted to you because of the way you style yourself, but then over time they made you feel bad about how you look, or they made you feel like it was undesirable, or maybe they were like, oh, you're not going out dressed like that, are you? Like maybe they started to try to control you, and it put some kind of limit on your self-expression. You felt like you weren't allowed to shine, or that you had to make yourself smaller. And maybe the situation ending, although incredibly painful, it felt like some kind of light at the end of the tunnel in a way. Like you could finally get back to being the person you were meant to be and not dimming your light for anyone. It's like it came with a lot of heartbreak, but also some tiny little element of relief, because maybe you were like, I can finally be free of this person. Like I no longer have to think about the situation so much and feel this pain. This is a person who could have been somewhat domineering or forceful in their demeanor. They try to control people around them because they themselves feel quite powerless. And in their life, this manifests in the form of aggression or emotional outbursts or just generally controlling behavior. I am hearing something about coercion as well, or coercive control being significant here. It also feels like this is a person who projects their mediocrity or their moral failings onto other people a lot. Like, this is the kind of person who would accuse their partner of cheating or lying because they're the ones doing the cheating or the lying. So they think that everyone is like that. I feel as though this is a person who is now finally being faced with the consequences of their actions. You're showing up as this high priestess, you're showing up as the sun. I want to say you've done your time. So maybe when this situation ended, it felt like you had been imprisoned. It felt like you had it the worst, or that you were devastated, and it seemed like this person maybe didn't care as much. But now this sobering reality is hitting them. Now they're lonely, they're going through this upheaval, they're reflecting on some of the poor choices that they've made. I think you are done with this situation, like you've seen it for what it was. So I think this person is being faced with a reality check of they're not getting back into your life, essentially. Like, they were given an opportunity to make things better or to change here, and they didn't take it, and now they're trapped with these thoughts of what they did or didn't do. Maybe for some of you, you were aware of this person's reputation, but you gave them the benefit of the doubt, but they were inconsistent, they didn't give enough attention to the things they should have been focusing on, and so they found a way to fumble this, and now this person is experiencing some clarity when it comes to that. If this person did certain things while under the influence or due to something external, of whether that be alcohol or substances or just generally, maybe there was a third party or something else influencing this person and they took their eyes off the ball, it's like that thing has gone and this person feels lonely, or they're like, well, now I'm left with nothing, and they're asking, what choice do I have? But they're still not fully tapped into their emotional world, really. They could be relying on certain unhealthy coping mechanisms, but really this is just a kind of superficial band-aid over some of the deeper issues. Maybe you see them going out a lot or trying to surround themselves with people constantly, drinking a lot, overeating, buying things, excessive consumption to kind of fill the void. Whatever the case may be, it's clear that they're hurting, but that they are currently avoiding some of that inner work here. So that is what I'm getting for the tarot portion of your reading, pal 2. I am just going to finish this reading by rolling the astro dice. So we're going to look at signs and houses just for a little bit of extra clarity for you. Now, these signs and houses don't have to apply, but it could be your sign or this person's sign, and that is just a little bit of extra confirmation for those who want or need it. Okay, so we have Sagittarius and 9th house, which is also Sagittarius, Jupiter energy. We have Virgo and we have 4th house, which is Cancer. We have Aries coming through. That's interesting because obviously you did get Aries for your astrological card. And we have the 6th house, which is also very interesting because we talked a lot about the physical body, and the 6th house can be associated with health and routines and things like that. So yeah, that is what I am getting for you, pal 2. I really, really hope you enjoyed this reading today. If you did enjoy the reading, please take a tiny little second out of your day to leave me a like. Please leave me a comment, let me know what resonated, or just tell me which pal you picked if you don't feel comfortable letting me know what resonated. That would just mean the absolute world to me, and I would appreciate it so, so much. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. That is the best and easiest way to support me. I am slowly making my way to 1,000 subs, so please help me on that journey if you get a chance. If not, I appreciate you being here in whatever capacity. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, pal 2, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Hi, Pal 3 Collective. If you chose Pal 3 and you chose the Plastics Oracle in Mean Girls Tarot and the Stack of Books sticker, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. This reading is all about what makes you so unforgettable and who won't ever forget you. So if you would like a full breakdown regarding everything this reading will entail, please go ahead and check out the introduction and go through absolutely everything there. I'm not going to go into all of the disclaimers again, but I just want to briefly reiterate that these are collective readings. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. And as always, if you're finding that any part of this reading is becoming more harmful to you than it is helpful, please feel free to pick a different pile or give this one a miss. These readings are intended to uplift and empower, not to confuse you further. If you need to sit this one out, you are more than welcome to come back for a future reading. So we are about to get started by looking at your oracle cards. So I'm actually just going to move your tarot cards to one side for now so we can focus on these few oracle cards. Please use this portion of the reading as an overall energy or vibe check, and for confirmation you have chosen the right pile. Go in with an open mind, but don't force anything to fit if it simply doesn't. Absolutely nothing bad will happen if you choose the wrong pile. All it means is that you get to go back and pick a different pile. You are also very welcome to choose more than one if more than one is calling to you. So before we look at your cards, I actually want to talk a little bit, as I have done in all the piles so far, about this sticker you picked, the stack of books. So I'm going to read out all the little titles on this stack of books sticker in case any of these are relevant to you and you can't see them properly. Feel free to pause the video if you would like to have a look yourself. But we have Ignore What's Not Worth Your Energy, Take Nothing Personally, Make Yourself Happy, Remember Your Essence, Upgrade Your Life in Private, Start Over, Start Late, Start Again. So some of these could kind of be significant mantras for you right now. They don't have to be, but as we go into the reading, I'm sure we'll come back to some of those titles and how they might relate to you. But what I want to say, first of all, is you could be my bookworm pile. You could be remembered as somebody who has a lot of random knowledge, or you have a pile of interesting books in your room about all different kinds of topics. And if it's not that you're a bookworm specifically, or that you get through a lot of books, it could just be that people remember you as being a curious person and you're a consumer who likes exploring lots of different unique niches or varied topics. There could be something memorable about the way you articulate yourself, your vocabulary. Maybe some of you have quite an extensive vocab, or you've been told you use unusual words, or maybe occasionally you say things and people are like, what was that word you just used? Like, what does that mean? Like, it sticks out to them. And it doesn't have to be books, but you could be remembered as a person who has some kind of interesting object or artifact in your house. And this could be anything, but I'm sensing for a lot of you, it's like maybe you've had friends over at your house in the past and they've seen this one thing in your house that has really caught their eye, and maybe they've asked questions about it. So it could be something of cultural or historical or religious significance, or it's just something that not everyone sees every day. I mean, like, even something like if you have a tarot deck in your own house, there might be certain people where if they've grown up raised in a certain way or they're a little bit sheltered, maybe they've never ever seen a tarot deck in real life before. So when they come across yours, they want to interact with it or handle it or pick it up, or they're asking questions about it. I don't want to say that it's something weird, but I'm feeling like it's something unique. It's maybe something a little bit unusual. It's not something that everyone sees every day, or certain people haven't seen it before. It could even be like a strange and unusual piece of artwork that catches people's attention. That's just a message for a few of you. I don't know why I'm getting this in particular, but with the book sticker, some of you are remembered for being somebody who has pretty journals or cute stationery. Maybe you're known as someone who likes their beautiful looking books or imagery. You're known as somebody who buys like fancy hardbacks, or you're remembered as somebody who has a traditional journal or something along those lines. Some of you could also have unfinished pieces of art or writing or manuscripts in your homes, and maybe you've let someone read a fraction of one of these and there's something about it that they remember very vividly. They're curious about what the project could look like or whether you're still working on that thing. So that's just a little message here about the sticker, but let's go ahead and we're going to have a look at the oracle cards that we pulled for you specifically, Pile 3. Okay, so we have got Aquarius. Traits are clever, reliable, creative, pessimistic, stubborn, impulsive. Dates are January 20th to February 18th. We have element air, ruling planet is Uranus. Major arcana card is the Star. Stones are amethyst and garnet. Colours are blue and violet. Lucky numbers are 3, 4, and 9. Flowers are orchid and gladiolus. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that one. But your next card is number 12, expectations. Don't seek anyone's approval. And we have number 5, grounding, potato. So as I always mention in these readings, you do not have to be an Aquarius or an air sign. You can interpret this astrology card more as an archetype in relation to energy that you are embodying. However, if you do have prominent Aquarius or 11th house or Uranus placements in your own chart, if you're an air sign, or even earth sign could be significant too with this grounding card, earth and air. If you are one of those or you have any of those in your big 3, that is just a little bit of extra confirmation for you that this is your pile. So something unforgettable about you, Pile 3. I'm hearing the message that you're just built a little bit different. I heard the phrase new breed. So you're a new breed, Pile 3. Maybe you are like my human/alien hybrid pile. Maybe at times that's what you feel like you belong on literally another planet or something along those lines. That could have even been something you heard a lot as a child. Maybe you were in your head daydreaming about different times and places a lot, and those around you would say it seems like Pile 3 is on another planet sometimes or in a whole different world sometimes. There's something unconventional about you that is frequently imitated, but I'm hearing never ever replicated. There is some kind of unique energy or essence that you possess, this certain je ne sais quoi when it comes to your aura, your vibes, that is highly, highly sought after by many, but it is not possible for this to be duplicated because I'm hearing that it is yours for a reason, and I don't even know how to explain that. But let's just say, as one example, you were something a little bit unconventional one day. Somebody could look at you and think, that style is really cool. I'm going to wear that outfit, or I'm going to do my hair like that to try and embody some of that Pile 3 energy. But even if they go and they buy the exact same outfit as you, it doesn't hit the same because they're not you. So you could be remembered as that guy or that girl with a really cool or interesting sense of style. But in actuality, this is about your entire essence and how you're able to pull things off that maybe other people couldn't. Maybe you're remembered as somebody who people like to copy. But it's not just about what you choose to put on that particular day, like your clothes. It's also in the way you carry yourself, your thoughts, how you articulate yourself, how you interact with the world. It's not just this one thing, and so people can't really put a finger on it. But you're unforgettable because when people encounter you, they feel like something you do or just the way you are is revolutionary. I'm hearing the phrase never been done before. So, a way you are as a person, or what you create, what you put out there, something you do has never been done before. Or if it has been done before in some kind of way, you're unforgettable because you found a way to make an old thing new. You found a way for that thing to advance. You've given it a makeover or a rebrand. So it turns into this fresh new idea. And the funny thing is, like, you could have been operating in this way for your whole entire life, but maybe in the past you got shamed for it. You're likely a person who is remembered for starting trends or maybe doing things before they become cool or socially accepted. And it doesn't even have to be things like style choices. For some of you, it can be an example like that. But it could also be to do with a belief you've shared or an idea you've suggested, like something you were shamed for believing a decade ago could now be becoming more socially acceptable, and now everybody wants your advice on it because you know about it, you've been promoting this thing for a long time. Even something like astrology, for example, in recent years has definitely become more mainstream. You started off the trend, but people didn't give you your props or recognition when you were doing it a decade ago because it was too out there. Maybe you've been told that some of your ideas won't take off or they'll never become popular, and then they do, so you're kind of remembered as that person who is ahead of the curve. Maybe people thought you were like weird or silly for thinking the way you do or doing the things you do. It could be in relation to a particular career path or a hobby that people maybe used to tease you for, but now it's becoming popular. And it's like you were doing it before anyone else was doing it. So you're definitely known as someone who is forward thinking and who can predict the next big thing before it happens. But maybe not everyone is on your unique wavelength when it comes to that. And it can be hard to put all of your unique ideas into layman's terms because people just haven't grasped quite the same vision that you have grasped. Some of you, it feels like you're from a different dimension or your brain is in a whole other dimension half the time. So when you try and explain these visions or these ideas in a coherent, human, materially grounded way, sometimes things get lost in translation and maybe people kind of respond to you in a confused manner, or they're like, what is Pal 3 talking about now? And someone else who doesn't understand you is like, oh, just ignore Pal 3, they're being weird. But then days or weeks or months or years down the line, they want to get in on whatever it is you were talking about. They're like, Pal 3, can you tell us about that again? Like, what was it that you said? It's just you're sort of way ahead. Maybe some of you are even kind of psychic or you work in spiritual fields yourself. This could be in the traditional sense of being an intuitive, being a healer of some kind, because Aquarius energy always reminds me of that sort of healing the collective kind of energy. But it could also be that you're known as someone who can successfully identify patterns and predict what the next big thing is going to be. So maybe people want you on their team when it comes to things like marketing or figuring out which direction we're heading in as a collective. You can kind of tap into that energy and use it in a way to create more of these revolutionary ideas. Many of you could be known as individuals who have a real humanitarian streak and a nuanced understanding for human suffering in a way that not everybody has true empathy for. Some of you could very well be remembered for your commitment to causes that are important to you. If any of you are activists or you're involved in your local community, if there are specific causes you stand for, I think you're remembered as somebody who stands behind their morals and advocates for those particular things. It could be something to do with serving vulnerable communities or climate activism or animal welfare. I think you're known as somebody who prioritizes what is important in that way. Like, if somebody is trying to make plans with you, but you've got a climate activism meeting, let's say, you're going to be like, sorry, I can't. This climate thing is important to me. Like, I've got a job to do, and you don't let anyone sort of take your attention away from the things you care about. Some of you could have something that is a little bit unusual about your facial features, and when I say unusual, I do not mean this in an offensive way. I mean it like it captivates people. It's something distinctive that they remember about you. So for a lot of you, it's this kind of unconventional beauty. Like, people remember you because they encounter you, and something about your features is something they don't see every day. And if you do have more of a conventional beauty within the context of your culture or your community, you're probably still going to have that one standout feature that's a little bit different or interesting. So one example could be like slightly far apart eyes or a pronounced jawline, or maybe you're somebody who is darker skinned, but you have an eye colour that really stands out in contrast to your skin tone, or something like that. It doesn't have to be those specific examples. But if that detail is relevant to you, you will probably know about it, because if it's like your eyes or whatever, people have probably been mesmerized by them. So they've probably said to you in the past, like, Pal 3, your eyes are just so beautiful or something. The way I describe it is a lot of you maybe have ethereal essence. Just Google that if you want, like, any celebrity examples. I think I've mentioned it before in these readings. But basically, like, you have that kind of beauty where you could play a kind of fantasy creature, like a fairy or a mermaid or an angel or an elf or vampire, even something like that. You will be cast as like the mystical or magical character, because there's something almost, I don't want to say non-human, but like beyond human about your beauty. And it's a little bit unsettling, but in a very captivating way. I also keep hearing the phrase futuristic. It's like people think that you know something that we all don't, or people think that you can see the future because you're known as somebody who is able to make those predictions. Yeah, and sometimes you're so forward thinking that people just can't really keep up with you, or they're like, what is Pal 3 talking about now? Something about a lot of people don't know how to keep up with the program. You're like 10 steps ahead of them, and at the time they might think that you're the one who's delulu or that you're not making sense, but later down the line it all makes sense and they wish that they'd listened to you. Some of you could be known as that person who's like, I knew this would happen, or I told you so, with a little smirk. But that's the thing though, like, you did know it would happen and you did tell them so, but you're someone who sometimes people don't listen to until it's too late. And of course, there's going to be so many different examples of this. This could just be something simple, like you predicting a problem at work before it happens, because you've already figured out, like, oh, if we do XYZ or we don't do XYZ, then this could happen. And it's like people could kind of fob you off or be like, you're thinking far too much into this, like, it's fine, don't worry. And then what do you know? The next day, they land themselves in the predicament that you already said would happen and they ignored. But I think this is probably kind of frustrating for you, Pal 3, because then when that work thing or whatever it is goes wrong and things played out like you described, then they're coming to you like, oh, please can you fix it, Pal 3? And I've seen you kind of roll your eyes like, oh, you should have listened to me in the first place. But maybe people don't listen to you and then you end up being right. Then you get more stuff put on your plate or more problems that you have to solve. I know that's kind of specific, but that feels relevant for someone here. I'm also getting something about you hijacking the programming with this expectations card. It's like you sometimes say things that people aren't expecting, and it's almost this sense of Pal 3 has overridden their coding or overridden the programming or something like that. It's making me think of the scene from Barbie where she asks, like, does anyone else think about unaliving or something like that? You're known as somebody who is very attuned to the human condition, and you're also almost too self-aware at times. Another example I'm getting, and this will relate to absolutely nobody but me, but I'm just trying to explain the vibe that I'm feeling, but I used to have a haunted Furby. It wasn't even an actual Furby, it was this other thing that was kind of like a Furby but bigger. If you would like a full story time about that, I can certainly make one, but to cut a long story very, very short, you know how Furbies and those kinds of toys from the 90s and early 2000s just had like certain programmed phrases? Well, mine just kind of had a mind of its own. It would glitch and make these random noises that it wasn't supposed to be making. It would switch itself on in the middle of the night when somebody was walking past it. You could just kind of hear the mechanical movements in the dark. It was really, really creepy. But that's kind of what I mean about you having overridden your programming, because you have a mind of your own. There's something about you having very independent thoughts, and maybe at times people reacting to you like, where did that come from? As one example, you could have been the kind of kid at sleepovers where you and your friends would be led in the pitch black dark. Everyone is on the verge of falling asleep, and then you just kind of break the silence by saying, do you guys think aliens exist? Or have any of you seen a ghost? Or something like that. I'm also getting this message about you being a popular loner. So I think you like to spend a lot of time either by yourself or with your inner circle, but you're actually very well liked by many people outside of that inner circle, and you're known as somebody who is well liked in various social settings. Because I'm thinking about the versatility of the potato, and I've never heard anyone say that they don't like some kind of potato in some form. And listen, I'm sure there are people out there who dislike potatoes, same as I'm sure that there are people out there who, for whatever reason, don't respond well to you and your energy, Pal 3. But for the most part, people love potatoes. They're a staple, and you can make all kinds of things with them, whether it's mash, wedges, fries, waffles, baked potato, soups. You can use potatoes to make gnocchi. I'm not going to go on anymore because I'm getting hungry now, but most people, is what I'm trying to say, like some kind of potato because they're adaptable. And I think that's the thing, is like, you can be adaptable, you can be versatile, and you know how to adapt when it comes to many different settings and people. You could end up being that person who has lots of different friends from lots of different walks of life because you know how to get along with everybody, but at the same time, you might not let everybody get too close. The thing is about a lot of Aquarius energies that I personally know, and I'm not saying every Aquarius is like this, I'm talking about specific people within my life, but I think some of this could apply to you, Pal 3. It's like the Aquarius energies I know, they're very compassionate when it comes to a lot of humanitarian causes, and they can also be quite open minded. And so they might attract a lot of people opening up to them quite easily, or in some instances, kind of trauma dumping on them. And a lot of them that I know are also empaths too, because they're 11th house dominant and they have that connection to the community. But this means that often they also have to be very, very firm with their boundaries because they pick up on a lot of stuff within their environment. And so you'll often notice Aquarius energies have to be really careful about who they truly give a lot of time to. And you might tend to find, although they're capable of getting along with a lot of people, there's only really a few people in their inner circle who they consistently can give that time and energy to. You also might tend to find that they drop off the radar quite a bit when they need alone time because a lot of people are asking for their attention and they have to be discerning with who they give that attention to and who they prioritize. Basically, it's kind of this vibe of Aquarius energy and air sign energy generally, to be honest. Like they can connect with a lot of people, and so they might have a lot of people thinking they're best friends with Aquarius when really on Aquarius's end they're just acquaintances or they're just friendly, but not truly friends, if that makes sense. It's not that they're being mean, in fact, it's because they do often try to help people day to day. They're the water bearers, they carry the emotions of other people a lot of the time, and that can be very, very draining. And it makes a lot of people around them think, well, Aquarius must really care about me, or Aquarius gave me this really amazing advice last time, so I'll just call on them again. And that's where Aquarius has to set boundaries, and that's where people can misinterpret them as cold because they want to be there to help everyone. But when people don't want to help themselves, or they're trying to use them as a sounding board with no reciprocity, Aquarius has to be like, I'm good with you asking for help, but I don't want you relying on me. Like, I'm not your mum. I have too much of my own stuff. Because a lot of the time they are dealing with their own stuff and they probably haven't even told you about this because they're just getting along with it, or they've only told their inner circle about that. So that's the thing with you, Pal 3. It's like a lot of people could feel like you're their favourite person in a particular context, but you only share your true self with the people actually closest to you. It's making me think of like if you were ever in a work environment dealing with the public in some way, you could be that person where when you come into work after your day off, your colleagues are like, oh, this customer came in yesterday, but they kept asking for you, like they would only deal with you, Pal 3, and we didn't get a sale out of them because they only want to talk to you. Because maybe you just had one conversation with this individual and they felt immediately connected to you. So now they come into your store and it's always like, no, go and get me Pal 3 or whatever. But that's the thing. It's like, it's your day off. So what are you meant to do? People can't demand to have access to you at all times is something that I'm getting. So some of you might be known as people where like you have this connection and then you drop off the radar sometimes or you go silent. But I think it's just to preserve your mental health most likely. With expectations, it could be that there's something about you where again, you're just not what most people expect. If you come across as one example, like super kind and helpful to many people, and they mistake that as like, I can ask Pal 3 anything, anytime I want, this could be about you setting unexpected boundaries. It could be also that there is some kind of unexpected dichotomy between your appearance and your personality. And these specific examples don't necessarily matter, but it could go either way in the sense that, like, maybe on the one hand, you're really petite and youthful looking and cute, or you dress super feminine, and so people assume that you'll be a pushover or easily manipulated, and they quickly find out that's not true once they get talking to you. Or it could almost be the opposite of like, maybe you're super tall, or you just look really intimidating in terms of how you dress, or you have a resting bitch face. So people have said to you, you know, I expected you to be a bitch when I first met you, or you really intimidated me, I was scared to approach you. But actually, your personality is like not scary at all, and you're actually super loving with a really soft heart, and you smile and laugh a lot once people actually get to know you. Some of you could have kind of alternative senses of style, or you're very innovative in terms of your physical appearance. You're constantly changing it, you're constantly transforming. I know we mentioned Uranus energy being significant. I also have Pluto in the first house coming through here maybe, or even maybe Gemini energy, because that's kind of like that trickster energy too. You're known as somebody who looks completely different each time people encounter you. Some of you could have visible tattoos or piercings, or you get new tattoos a lot, or you're always changing your piercings around. There's something about maybe body modifications for just a couple of people here. It could also be like with your hair, maybe in the past you've gotten a buzz cut, or you've shaved one side of your head, or you dye it different colours a lot. Or maybe, you know, you used to wear your hair poker straight every day, or you used to wear extensions or wigs, and now you're doing the curly girl method or embracing your natural curl pattern as one example. But basically, there's some difference with you every time people see you. You're constantly up leveling to become more and more you each time. I'm also getting something about you being known for using your big ideas to make things a tangible reality. And this could apply particularly to those of you where you do anything as spiritual or a bit woo woo. It's kind of like you might be known as the woo woo person who approaches all things woo woo from more of a down to earth lens. Like, as one example, if you do tarot or anything like this, you could kind of combine the scientific with the spiritual in some way, or maybe you approach things like tarot from a psychological lens, or you incorporate scientific research into your practice in some way to make it more grounded in the material without losing the magic touch. That's just one example. It doesn't have to be that exact one, but you could make those kinds of practices more accessible to maybe people who are secular or people who are skeptical of those things. Like, for some people, even things as basic as meditation are too woo woo. And a lot of people, it's not that they are deliberately shitting on it, but maybe they just haven't found a way for it to work for them, because a lot of people do really struggle to get out of their own head. So maybe they're like, oh, I just don't see the point in meditation. I've tried it, but it doesn't really work for me. I don't really get what I'm meant to be doing. So you could encourage those kinds of people by saying, well, the studies say that the benefits of meditation are this and this and this. It doesn't have to be this totally spiritual practice for everyone, but you could be known as someone who combines the scientific and the spiritual and approaches these things in a very grounded way that's rooted in our current reality. The angel numbers 1212 or 555 could be significant for this pile also. The angel number 1212 can talk about harmonious alignment between career and money, and it can talk about having like a clear path and growing in a spiritual way. And 555 is also often associated with spiritual guidance and with learning. So there could be something about you guys having a close relationship with your guides. If you believe in that, you could have recently discovered your life path or a route you'd like to go down in terms of your career or a side business. And that's a part of what's going to make you unforgettable in this lifetime if that is the case. Some of you are in that process of learning and growing right now, and you're about to make these new discoveries. So that is what I'm getting for the oracle portion of your reading, pile 3. I really, really hope you are enjoying the reading so far. We are about to move along to the tarot, so please bear with me and we'll get started on your tarot. Hi pile 3 collective, welcome to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the cards that we pulled for you. So we're going to be elaborating on the energy discussed throughout your oracle reading. We're going to be looking at what makes you so unforgettable. So let's pull these first 8 cards. I will check that everything is in frame once I've laid the cards, so don't worry if things aren't in frame. Okay, so we have got the 5 of Swords reversed. We've got the Empress reversed. We've got the Magician. We've got the King of Wands. We've got the Fool. We've got the 6 of Pentacles. We've got the Knight of Cups. And we've got the Sun. Okay, I'm getting a few different messages here, because with this pile in particular, I'm getting this sense, not of oppositional energy necessarily, but basically a lot of people who have very different goals and desires to one another, I think, have chosen this pile, which is expected. Like, it's a collective reading and we are all different people. But what it means is I'm going to cover a couple of very different examples and scenarios here. And now it could just be that because you have that sort of ever evolving, transformative kind of energy, because you are ever changing and growing, we could just be talking about 2 versions of you, like a past version and a current version, or a current version and a future version, basically you on 2 different timelines. But what I do want to say right off the bat, because this particular message I feel applies to everyone listening, regardless of what your personal goals and dreams are, there's something unforgettable about your psychic powers. So you are my group of intuitives. You are my group of just knowing things before they happen, spotting patterns, having predictive dreams or premonitions. And this doesn't even have to be in a super profound woo-woo kind of way. I'm not saying that all of you are having your "that's so Raven" moments. Some of you, like those of you who are more aware of these gifts and you're tapped into that kind of thing, and you do divination yourself and you actively want to make it a career or an important part of your life in some way, I think you're very tapped into like, oh yeah, spirit is trying to tell me something here, or that was a vision, or whatever. But for others of you, it's just these little nudges from your intuition, like, maybe we should do this today, or maybe we shouldn't do that today. Or maybe we should do the project this way. I feel like this would really take this project to the next level. Whatever context this relates to, it's like you get these little inclinations to do things a certain way, and these nudges somehow feel divinely guided. And when you follow whatever it is you're called towards, it feels like it starts to pay off, and in turn, people recognize your power. You're known as someone who people want to approach as let's ask pal 3 because they'll know the best thing to do. If this isn't in a job or anything like that, at the very least, I think you are someone who within your friendship circle is the certified vibe checker of the group. Like you're unforgettable because people want you to conduct assessments of their potential romantic partners because you'll always spot things that other people don't, or you'll suss something out just right. You kind of read people to filth. And even when these people don't listen to you, because let's be honest, if we are into a person, we're going to do what we want, even if our friends and family are saying like, oh, something's a little off. Like sometimes we are just blinded by love or by lust. But even if, friends or family don't listen to you in that moment, when the relationship falls apart, people want to come back to you and say, well, pal 3, I guess you were right all along, or how did you know? Because they just weren't able to see what you could see so clearly. So you're remembered as that person who, if anyone needs advice on another person or an outside situation, they're like, go to pal 3, they'll know what to do. They'll be able to suss this person and their motivations out. It's that kind of energy. You are like a human lie detector, I feel like. So you have psychic powers in some way, whether you acknowledge this and you lean into those powers, or whether you just want to call it like a strong sense of intuition and pattern recognition, you for sure know something that we don't, is what I'm saying. But however you use that is completely up to you. Whether it's in a career sense or in terms of your personal development or using those gifts to be a confidant for friends and family, people remember that you're always somebody who can size things up and you know what's what. Now, this is where some of the messages might go in slightly different directions, so please bear with me. There is still some overlap here. Now, for just a couple of you, and this one's kind of specific, also trigger warning for a couple of minutes here, we are going to be talking about fertility and pregnancy, potentially loss as well. I'll try not to talk about it for too long because I know it can be an upsetting topic for lots of reasons, but I only give these messages when I am called to do so. So I am saying it because I do feel like it's relevant, even if it's just for one person here. And this relates to that expectations card we got during the oracle, by the way. So some of you could have dealt with infertility in the past with this Empress in reverse, and then you experienced a very successful, healthy pregnancy with this Sun card, or that is something that will happen. So this could have been unexpected for you in the sense that, maybe you were told having a child naturally would not be possible or would be very, very unlikely for you. So you stopped actively trying, but then it happened when you surrendered or when you least expected it. So as one example, it could be like you were actively trying all throughout your 20s and 30s. You saw countless doctors or specialists and it just never happened, or you could never figure out what the problem was. So you started to give up hope, but then maybe like in your 40s, bam, surprise pregnancy. Or it could just be whatever age you are due to a condition you have. You were told it's very unlikely for you to conceive or get someone pregnant, whichever applies, but you unexpectedly stumbled on the root cause of the issue when you weren't necessarily looking. So one example of that could be like when you saw doctors in the past, when you were with a previous partner, they gave you all sorts of tests, but then they didn't test the other person. So maybe you believed that you were kind of the reason why this wasn't happening, but maybe there were other things that you didn't know when it came to this other person. Like maybe the other person had even had a secret procedure to ensure they didn't have kids, or they were on birth control or something like that. I know that that's very specific, but it felt as though for a long time, for those of you where this does apply, it feels like maybe you put all the pressure on yourself, or you said that it was your fault, but then maybe you eventually got with a new partner thinking you weren't even fertile, and then oops, surprise pregnancy. Or it could even be like you put an enormous amount of pressure on yourself for this to happen, and once some of that pressure was removed, it happened naturally. It could be that something external was putting a lot of pressure on you. For example, maybe you experienced pregnancy loss, or maybe even more than one, and you kept blaming yourself, but really it's because you were put in an overly stressful work environment or domestic environment, and once you were out of that, it allowed you to fully thrive physically and emotionally and be able to be in the best place to carry a pregnancy, and so you overcame that period of infertility, if that applies. Now, again, that won't be for everyone, and also what I want to say is that it does not have to be about a physical pregnancy. It could be that if you are a creative of any kind, it felt like you've been through a period where you experienced a lack of imagination, or you felt like your creative expression was stifled in some way. And maybe you put a lot of pressure on yourself to force that creativity and put out work, but you put yourself down saying to yourself like, well, maybe I'm just not an imaginative person, but actually there were other factors getting in the way. So maybe you didn't have enough time to dedicate to your creative practices because you were overburdened with an enormous workload, or because maybe you had some kind of overbearing figure in your life who didn't always allow you to express yourself. So you didn't get to experience fertile ground for your creative ideas to flourish. And please bear in mind, you're all on different timelines here. So for some of you, you're out of this situation, but for others of you, you might still be in it and you're thinking of getting out eventually. This could be like once you leave this situation, or maybe once you move out of a parental home, or a bad roommate or lover situation, or once you leave a particular job, your creativity bounces back and you're allowed to truly shine and flourish with the Sun card in particular, because there isn't as much holding you back and you can truly do the things you want to do, because you are going to be remembered as somebody who brings something into fruition successfully. So whether it's a creative project you're working on or it's something more physical and you're talking about like healing your body or healing your health, whatever it is, you're unforgettable because at one point you were in this place of like, the grass isn't growing, I'm trying, but I'm not getting anywhere, I feel blocked, to this ultra confident, I did it, I made this thing, it happened for me, look at what I've done here. That's something that makes you unforgettable, is you've brought something to life, whether it's physically or metaphorically. So when I say we had kind of a lot of opposite energy in this pile, one thing I'm getting is that for some of you, particularly those that identify with the label of feminines, with this Empress in reverse, you're actually rejecting some form of cultural conditioning that's told you, like as one example, you have to be a wife and mother to be fulfilled. So some of you, it could be like you were brought up to believe in your culture that that was the only way. And you're kind of saying like, fuck that, I'm not following that path. I'm not following that thing that's set out for me. I'm going and I'm doing something different. And it doesn't matter necessarily what that different thing is. But the point is, you're remembered as somebody who went out and did what they wanted to do despite external pressures or people trying to make you feel a certain way or argue that their choices are the better choices. For some of you, you could have been brought up in a culture that was very much like, oh, you haven't got a husband yet, or you're still single, and people within that setting wanted you to follow the path that had already been laid out by previous generations, or they wanted you to follow the status quo in some way. Maybe you have a paternal figure in your life who is like, oh, when are you giving me grandbabies? But you don't want that. So you're doing something differently, but you're going to be remembered as somebody who paved their own way and prioritized their independence. Maybe there were people who were like, oh, pal 3 is acting up, but they'll grow out of it. Or pal 3 is saying they want this, but eventually they'll settle down and find a husband and have babies. But maybe that's not what you wanted. So you stuck to your guns and did these other things you wanted to do. You went on adventures. And maybe a lot of people project onto you because of that, or they say to you, like, oh, I could never go and do XYZ. Like, they're trying to make you feel bad about it. But I think honestly, a lot of it comes from a place of lack and this place of some of them wishing they had made the choices that you had made, but they were too afraid to step out of the box and go their own way. I mean, this could even apply in terms of things like sexuality, and it doesn't have to be this example, but if you're a person who is not heterosexual and you're open about this and you just live your life and do what you want, you could have people in your family who also aren't heterosexual and they fell into the trap of compulsory heterosexuality, as one example. So now they look at you and they're like, I wish I would have explored more of that when I was younger, or something along those lines. Obviously, it doesn't have to be that specific example, but it's whatever is maybe like frowned upon in your specific environment or culture or your family. You could have had older relatives saying to you, like, you know, women in our family don't do that, or men in our family don't do that, whichever applies to you, or, you know, people from this religion or this ethnicity don't do XYZ, but you wanted to do it, so you did it. You broke out of your conditioning to reach for something, and that's something that makes you unforgettable. I'm hearing you're the first of your generation to do it. So this could even be about breaking some kind of generational trauma. It doesn't even have to be anything as deep as like sexuality or whether or not to have kids. It doesn't have to be those big things like that. It could even be in terms of your appearance. Maybe you just weren't allowed to dress a certain way or express yourself with your appearance growing up. And so that part of you was stifled, and now you've escaped that overbearing figure in your life who wanted you to do things a certain specific way. Now you do what you want and you're remembered as that person who is a free thinker and doesn't let people tell them what to do. I keep hearing that you're one of the few who dared to be different, particularly with that King of Wands coming through. Even when it maybe made life difficult for you, you stuck to your guns because you're here to be a leader and not a follower. I mean, this is such a random example, but it could even be something like choosing not to eat meat for moral or environmental reasons. People in your family could make life hard for you due to that. They could be like, well, I'm not serving vegetables at the barbecue. In this family, we eat meat. Because people can be super petty when it comes to stuff like that. Often people take other people's choices as a personal attack on them. Or even if you're like, I'm vegan, and people in your office are like, so you don't even have milk? Like, why though? That's really weird. And then they're always bringing cakes in the office and they're like, oh, I brought cakes for everybody, but sorry, pal 3, you can't have one. Being purposely passive aggressive or leaving you out. So that can be hard when you're made to feel ostracized or like you don't fit in, even when it's not on a grand scale. Because like it or not, as humans, we are social creatures. And some of us are more social than others, but for the most part, we like to be on good terms or at least peaceful terms with people we interact with. But it feels like for you, people have maybe put you down for the way you are or your choices, but you stuck to your guns and you've done what you want anyway, and that's something you're remembered for. Because people are like, it doesn't matter how many times people try to shit on pile 3 or put them down, they stuck to their choices, they did what they wanted because it was important to them. And I think a lot of people are really proud of you for that. I'm proud of you for that. Even if you're more introverted or you're not the loudest in the room, people know that you're strong because you don't back down easily. You don't just bend with the idea that's most popular in that moment. You stick to what you think. You set trends, you don't follow them. There's something about you just being so memorable because you set a precedent with your morals. And you're like, just because they're acting that way doesn't mean I'm going to act that way. It's making me think of that phrase that parents always say. You know, when their kids say, like, well, all my friends were doing it, and parents always say, oh, so if all your friends went and jumped off a bridge, you'd do it too. And obviously, we all know that they were being dramatic, but it can be difficult, especially when you're younger and you're still learning not to bow to that social pressure. But there's something about you that's so memorable because everyone in the room you're in could be wearing yellow, but you've decided that you want to wear blue. And you know, maybe the people who are wearing yellow have to stand here, and the people who are wearing blue have to stand over here. So you're left standing alone in that instance. And maybe people in that room are saying to you, like, Pal 3, I've got a yellow jacket you can borrow. Are you sure you don't want to wear it? And you're like, no, I want to wear blue today. And they're like, are you sure? Like, you're all over there on your own. And you're like, that doesn't matter to me. I'm wearing blue because I want to wear blue. Doesn't matter what everyone else in this room is doing, they don't faze me. You're unbothered by it. You're going to do what feels right for you, regardless of that status quo. And then later down the line, it turns out you were right not to follow that certain path, and people are saying to you, you know that day when you wore blue instead of yellow? I actually wish that I'd have worn blue instead of yellow because it looks so much better in the photos, or something like that. This might be a more specific message, but somebody could have been shocked that you uncovered something with this Five of Swords reversed. Or like maybe somebody was doing something shady at your work and you were a kind of whistleblower or you spoke up about it, and people didn't expect it because maybe they viewed you as like the introverted guy or girl at the office who doesn't speak up much, but you had to do the right thing when it came to this. It also feels like you're remembered as somebody who has got to a stage in their life where they no longer want to rise to people's projections or accusations. You're happy to kind of coexist with people and be peaceful, but you've surrendered to the idea that everybody is going to align to your way of thinking. So people might still criticize certain things you do, but you kind of brush it off because you're choosing your peace, and ultimately, you wouldn't want your life to look like the lives of the people who are criticizing you. So I think you're known as somebody who is not easily rattled and somebody who cannot be swayed. I'm also sensing that something maybe that you're working on, whether you have an idea in the pipeline or this is like a small business, maybe something you make in terms of a creative endeavor, this thing stands out from the crowd. And maybe you've taken an old idea and revolutionized it, or you've come up with an entirely new idea. But it's something that people remember because there's something unique about it. So let's just say, as one example, you make jewelry. Obviously, there's a million small businesses making jewelry on Etsy. There's a lot of talented artists out there, but there's something about your creation standing out in a sea of other creations and making your product unforgettable. So it could be in terms of the product itself, or the way you market it, the way you connect with an audience, or the specific brand or niche you're trying to cater to. But it's like your potential consumers could scroll through 100 Etsy listings and they're like, wait, let's go back to Pal 3's jewelry shop because I haven't seen another bracelet like this, or there was something about the way that it was advertised that caught my eye. And the same could apply to your YouTube channel or Insta or TikTok, whatever it is you do, something about it shines brightly in comparison to your peers. And I'm also hearing it's unforgettable in the sense that even maybe potential investors are interested in what you have to offer, and they're like, you know, let's put our money into this because nobody else is doing it quite like this. Maybe investors who have that same sense of pattern recognition and forward thinking like you do are like, I can see that this is going to make big money in the future, so I'm going to invest in it now. It could just relate to people wanting to give you thanks, like super thanks on YouTube even, people wanting to tip you for your services because it's something they just aren't getting elsewhere. This could also be something about your humanitarian work if you do anything like that. Like you're going to be remembered in the future for your fundraisers or charities or something that you have given to this world. Maybe a certain percentage of your profit from your future businesses or something like that goes to a worthwhile cause. So you're going to be remembered as somebody who was very generous. I think you're also unforgettable because you're known as someone who is fair and someone who believes in equality. Now, this could be advocating for the world to be a more fair place and speaking out about discrimination. But on a smaller scale, it could also be like you're that boss who is willing to treat your employees fairly. You know, you have those bosses who like to give the people earning minimum wage the really crappy jobs that nobody else wants to do. You're not like that, basically. Like, if you were a boss, it seems as though you're not going to give someone a job that you wouldn't do yourself. I think you're going to be remembered as somebody who is diplomatic and an excellent negotiator. You're also going to be remembered as somebody who comes across as very artistic and imaginative. Even if you're not in a creative industry, there's something about you that screams like you're a person with big ideas. People just know that. You could also be known as a person where people meet you once and they want to take you out or they want to invite you places. You could be that person where you've had people reach out to you like, oh, my friend who met you the other day wants to know if you're single. Or even if it's not in a romantic way, you could have people saying like, oh, my friend who met you the other day loved you and now they want you to come to this event. You're known as somebody who can vibe well and get along with people really, really easily, and people like to be around you. Again, popular loner kind of vibes. So next, we're going to be asking who won't or can't ever forget you. So if you don't want to hear about a specific person or a specific group of people and you were just here for the what makes you unforgettable part, that is absolutely fine. I love having you here in any capacity, so thank you for being here and I will hopefully see you in the next one. But if you're sticking around because you want to know who this is or you're curious, we are about to get started with the who. So this could be anyone. It could be a romantic situation, a platonic situation, someone from your past, someone you're currently dealing with. I don't know. All I know is it's someone who cannot forget you and someone whose head you are living in rent-free. And like I say, it could be about more than one person, maybe a number of people can't forget you. But today we're going to be focusing on the strongest energies coming through. So let's see who is coming through and how you might know this person. Okay, so we have the Two of Wands reversed. We have the Two of Swords reversed, okay. We have the King of Cups reversed. Oh, we have the King of Swords upright. We have the Star reversed. Lots of reversals. We have Death. We have the Seven of Cups. And we have the Six of Wands. I'm sorry if you can hear stuff in the background, by the way. It is my neighbour. Well, it's not even my neighbour. It's like somebody who's about 3 doors down. But he is always really, really loud. I mean, I'm sat by the window too, so maybe he can hear me and he thinks I'm really loud. But yeah, I'm sorry. I will try and reduce that during editing. But if you hear like yelling, it is some guy on the phone. I know a lot more of his business than what I would like to know. So maybe that is significant. Like maybe you get to know people's business, or people just dump a load of information on you. You overhear things, you find out about things that you didn't really ask to know about. But the overarching message that I'm getting, whatever the relationship dynamic is with this person, it's like somebody could have chosen to go one certain way and they didn't. In fact, in many instances, it feels like this person hasn't actually chosen anything at all. Either they've let life pass them by, or they've just remained in a certain situation out of ease or out of comfort. They haven't taken action, or they haven't had the courage to leave something behind and start something new. Maybe they've been quite passive and avoidant when it comes to this. They haven't wanted to take a chance. And again, this could refer to many different situations, so I will cover a few examples. So it could be that someone's inaction led to it feeling like they chose someone or something else over you. So this could be like straight up, you and this person were vibing and you thought it could go somewhere, but this person couldn't leave their comfort zone and take action, so things were left up in the air, or things that never even got off the ground to begin with. Or it could be that this person went back to what they know, or they returned to something because they were fearful of change, or they couldn't let it go, they couldn't see a way forward, so they just kind of kept their eyes closed, or they kept putting off what they needed to do. And of course, for many of you, I think this will lean romantic. Like this person was in a relationship that was stifling them or that wasn't making them happy, and they could have had something new with you, but they chose to stick with what they know or just not make a move. But it could be a friend or family member, and you were hoping they would be able to make the choice to get out of a certain toxic situation with other family members or people you know or something like that. And maybe they wanted to, but they got overwhelmed with worry, or they didn't feel like it was their choice. Maybe they were like, well, what if I do this and it all goes wrong? They were being overly cautious. They didn't want to take a risk. Maybe even if you were saying like, look, I have to distance myself from this friend group or from this other family member because they're getting me down, and you could come and live with me or stay with me or hang out with me so that you can distance yourself from them. And it's like a part of them felt torn. They wanted to take you up on it, but in the end, they just couldn't do it. They felt like they couldn't sever ties with whoever or whatever this is. It doesn't even have to be another person. This could be someone who is choosing a certain lifestyle that doesn't really align with them at a soul level, but they feel like they're having to just go with the emotions and stick with it anyway. It could go back to what we were saying earlier, like this is a person who wishes they could go ahead and do what you're doing or go ahead and be on a certain path with you, because there's a lot of wishful thinking coming through here with this Seven of Cups. This is something this person has been daydreaming about, but they feel like they can't, or it's just not possible for them. They're being held back, or there are too many risks. They go back and forth in terms of what they actually want with their life, and they're just too indecisive, because this is a person who really struggles maybe to listen to their intuition or like what their heart is truly telling them. They could be very overly logical, so any decision that is more influenced by what their heart is calling them towards feels kind of foreign to them, or they don't feel like they can fully trust it, which is maybe why they didn't choose it. But now they're kind of in regret over this. They're thinking, like, what if I had done this, or what if I had chosen differently? If it's not a love interest or friends or family, it could even be someone not choosing you for a job or promotion. And now they're thinking, I should have gone with pal 3, or I should have snatched up pal 3, or when I had the chance. Whatever the situation is, it's something along those lines, because it does seem like they're in some kind of regret here. And with this Six of Wands, it's something about you receiving praise or acclaim. You're being recognized for something. If this hasn't happened yet, I think this is going to happen, and maybe this person will see this, because now someone here is like, I wish I had Power 3 on my team in some kind of way. For some of you, it could just be that you've had this physical glow up, and people are noticing, and there's people commenting on your pictures to tell you this. So now this person is wondering if things could have been different. It could also be, someone seeing you doing a particular thing, like getting acclaim on your YouTube channel, for example, or in terms of a particular hobby. And they're like, oh, I wish I would have chosen to do that, or I should have started that years ago, and maybe I'd be getting that same acclaim. But they chose a different path because they didn't feel like the path that you chose was the safe option. And now, maybe they're not too happy with the decisions they've made or not made. This is somebody who could come across to you as quite clinical or quite detached from their emotional selves. They could be very emotionally guarded. This could also be somebody who you felt has kind of strung you along for a while. They kept telling you that something would happen soon, and then it never did. They just kept making empty promises, maybe even false starts or empty promises to themselves. You were led to believe that they were coming with you one certain way, and then in the end they went cold or got distant, or they just didn't offer you what they promised, or they were like, nah, I just can't do it. I know I said I would, but I just can't. This is someone who it feels like they've chosen a mundane life over an extraordinary life because they were worried about what would happen if everything changed. They could also have been worried about them being exposed or lies being exposed. It could be something to do with lies they've told another person, or even lies they have told themselves, because they could either be bound to someone else or something else, or they could be bound to this belief or this sense of identity that is rooted in lies. And they could have been clinging onto this because they were terrified of facing the truth, or maybe starting something again. So they just couldn't quite let go of this other thing, and now it's left them feeling kind of hopeless and either wishing that they were with you or wishing that they followed a similar path to you. And I would not be surprised if they are quite envious in some way of a path you have chosen or something that you're doing. Obviously, if this is a romantic interest, they might get jealous when they see that you're being treated well by other potential suitors, or that other people are complimenting you. But if it's not that kind of thing, it could just be somebody who is thinking a lot about whatever moves you're making right now, and they're like, I wish I would have done that. Like, this could have been my reward. But they didn't follow their heart. They didn't go with what they truly wanted. They were too scared to take a plunge or go down a new path. They were too scared to risk losing the things they had, so they kind of like let life happen for them and didn't really commit to any one thing. And then they lost that opportunity altogether, or they feel like it's too late to start again. This person could work in the law field, or there's some kind of military connection here. That doesn't have to apply, but it might do for just one or two people. But I feel as though, whatever the nature of this relationship, I feel like you're going to know who this is, because there's some element of like, you tried to put this person onto the good stuff. I just heard the good stuff. So whether it's you having offered this person a chance to connect with you and you were the good stuff, or whether you were offering someone your services, like your product, and they went with another person, or if you were offering a friend or family member the chance to be on this certain path with you, or you tried to give them advice on how they can do something their own way, and they were like, nah, I'm going to stick to this other thing, or nah, I'm not sure if I can do that. It's like you knew it was going to lead to success if they'd have given it a chance, so you tried, but that's all you could do. Like, you couldn't force it, you couldn't make someone believe a certain thing if they didn't. So in the end, you just surrendered, or you went and did your thing, and it seems like by doing that, you're going to be getting certain rewards if you haven't gotten them already, and it's leaving certain people remembering the time you offered them that chance to go down a path and they didn't take it. And now they're like, things could have been so different if I'd have done that. But that's what I'm getting for you, pal 3. We are going to finish this reading off by rolling the astro dice, so we're going to look at signs and houses. These signs and houses don't have to apply, but it's just a little bit of extra confirmation for those of you who would like it. This could be prominent signs or houses in your chart or this person's chart. Okay, so let's have a look at that. 3. Okay, we have Libra, and we have the 3rd house, which is connected to Gemini. So Libra and 3rd house. We have got Capricorn, and we have got the 11th house, which is connected to Aquarius. That is Capricorn and the 11th house. And we have got the 12th house and Gemini. That is 12th house and Gemini. 12th house is connected to Pisces. So that is what I'm getting for your reading, pile 3. I really hope you enjoyed this reading today. If you did enjoy the reading, please do me a massive favour. Please like the video. Please leave me a little comment. Let me know what resonated. Just let me know which pile you picked if you don't feel comfortable. Let me know what resonated. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. That is the easiest and best way to support me and this channel. I am slowly making my way to 1,000 subs, so please help me out on that journey if you get a chance. If not, no worries. Thank you for being here in any capacity. I'm really grateful for you listening. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to this reading. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one, pile 3. Hi, pile 4 collective. If you chose pile 4 and you chose the dog tarot with the happy pills sticker, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. This reading is all about what makes you so unforgettable and who won't ever forget you. So if you would like a full breakdown regarding everything this reading will entail, please go ahead and check out the introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I'm not going to go into all of the disclaimers again, but I just want to briefly reiterate that these are collective readings. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. And as always, if you're finding that any part of this reading is becoming more harmful to you than it is helpful, please feel free to pick a different pile or give this one a miss. These readings are intended to uplift and empower you, not to confuse you further. If you need to sit this one out, you are more than welcome to come back for a future reading. So we are about to get started by looking at your oracle cards. So I'm just going to move your tarot cards to one side for now so we can focus on these few oracle cards in front of us. Please feel free to use this portion of the reading as an overall energy or vibe check and for confirmation you've chosen the right pile. Go in with an open mind, but don't force anything to fit if it simply doesn't. Absolutely nothing bad will happen if you choose the wrong pile. All it means is that you get to go back and pick another pile. You are also very welcome to choose more than one if more than one is calling to you. So before we look at your cards, I actually want to talk a little bit about this sticker that you chose today in relation to your energy, pile 4. So with you choosing happy pills, it's possible that some of you could work in some kind of pharmaceutical industry, or you do something with medicines. That might just be for one person. But also what I'm getting is that some of you could have struggled in the past with things like anxiety or with a case of the stressy depressies. And if that's the case, and even if it's not, to be honest, and this is just kind of your personality, I almost feel like it's given you this ability to kind of make light out of dark situations. Maybe because you have been through darkness before and it kind of makes you feel better to normalize some of that stuff and make it an easier thing for people to talk about in a way. But even if that specific detail doesn't apply, it's like you're still my pile who has that kind of dark or sarcastic or maybe slightly dry sense of humour. I can imagine you being the kind of person where if you're joking around with somebody and you're teasing each other or kind of saying like things to wind each other up, that person could say to you like, if you keep doing that, I'm going to kill you, as a joke, and you'd be the one to be like, oh, don't threaten me with a good time. Like, not that example exactly, but it's kind of that sense of humour. I'm also getting for someone here, it's like you're purposely over dramatize something to make it funny, and that's a thing you're known for. So like you maybe exaggerate certain parts of the story to make it really climactic. Or you could be the type of person where, as one example, if you're PMSing, if you're a woman or something like that, and you're having cravings, you could be like, I will literally pass out if I don't get a cheeseburger or whatever. It's just one example. And you could have been like told off for saying literally a lot in the past. Like somebody could respond to you kind of like, well, I don't think you're literally going to pass out. And you'd be like, I am. I will pass out on this floor right now. I will perish if I do not get that cheeseburger. Like I say, it doesn't have to be that example exactly, but sometimes you're known as making people laugh for being overly dramatic by having that style of humour. For those of you dealing with any kind of health condition where you have to take medication, it could be a thing that people remember about you is that you have to take that medication at a certain time. That's just another specific detail for someone. Or maybe you're somebody who is always like, shit, I forgot to take my meds today. There's something definitely about a part of your routine being highlighted here. Like you're remembered due to your routine, or you're known as somebody who has to do a specific thing every day, and it feels like it's something that either brings you joy or it makes your life better in some way. And it doesn't have to be a medication or taking like an anti-anxiety pill. It could be something like that, or something like, oh, I've got to take my supplement or vitamin, whatever it is that makes you feel more grounded and more like a fully functioning human being. So your happy pills could be your cup of morning coffee or your morning walk or taking a bubble bath or playing games. It doesn't matter what it is necessarily, but you're known for doing that thing every day. Maybe it's even a certain thing you do on your lunch break at work and your colleagues are like, oh, are you going to get your daily pastry? Or are you going to go and visit that pet store next door and look at the animals? It's something that you do a lot that you're known for and it might bring you joy. It's not that you're predictable, but there's just that one specific thing you do that people know is like your thing. It could even be an item you own or something. Like, let's say you bring in a travel mug to work and this particular travel mug has cute dogs all over it. I'm just mentioning dogs with you picking the dog tarot. And maybe you leave it lying around somewhere and someone at work is like, oh, whose is that? And everyone's like, oh, it's probably Pal 4's because he or she loves dogs. It's that kind of thing. But that is what I'm getting for your sticker. Now let's have a look at the cards we pulled for you today, Pal 4. Okay, so we have Taurus. Traits are dedicated, responsible, practical, stubborn, inflexible, possessive. Dates are April 19th to May 20th. Element is Earth. Ruling planet is Venus. Major Arcana card is the Hierophant. Stones are emerald and rose quartz. Colours are green and pink. Lucky numbers are 5, 6, and 12. Flowers are poppy and rose. We have number 14, Thorns. Weave together the crown you deserve. And we have number 33, Wholeness, Black Mulberry. So as I've mentioned throughout all of my readings today, I am interpreting this Taurus card more as an archetype. So you do not have to be a Taurus or an earth sign, but if you are a Taurus or you have prominent Taurus or earth sign energy in your chart, that's just a little bit of extra confirmation that you've chosen the right pile. Could also be Libra because of the Venus showing up. So first of all, with us getting this Venus energy coming through strongly, a lot of people remember you because you're beautiful, not only in terms of your looks, but your energy and the way you carry yourself as a whole. There's something conventionally appealing and pleasant about you that makes people want to gravitate towards you. Maybe you're somebody who makes the effort with your appearance every day and people notice that you always seem to look put together, or they remember certain outfits that you wore. You could be remembered as somebody who just always shows up looking really presentable and quite sophisticated. And that doesn't have to mean, spending hours doing your makeup and hair. For some of you, it could be. Some of you could have hobbies that involve those things, or even businesses. Like some of you could be makeup artists or hairstylists and things like that. But it absolutely doesn't have to be if that's not your thing. You could be the type of person that people say like, oh, your makeup always looks really good. It's something they remember. But equally, it could just be that you invest in really high quality skincare products, or you're very consistent with your routine, or you invest in good clothes that accentuate your best features. So maybe, in the grand scheme of things, it only actually takes you a few minutes to look put together in the morning, and it's because of the work you've already put in, like sticking to that consistent skincare routine, or getting your clothes ready the day before and like investing in that wardrobe beforehand. Some of you could also get your lashes curled and tinted, and people remember you as somebody who just looks like bright and alert, even when you're not feeling that way on the inside. If it's a work day or whatever and you're actually quite tired on the inside, that's just a random detail for somebody here. People remember you as being of high quality or high value in some way. You're known as somebody who enjoys the luxurious side of life. People could remember you as somebody who is a little bit bougie, or they could remember you and think like Pal 4 is probably rich or probably well off. Even if that's not the case, it's just, maybe how you come across. It could be that you wear a perfume or aftershave that smells expensive, so when you pass people, they remember that you smell opulent. So they assume that you are probably opulent in terms of your finances. It's like you exude sophistication and opulence. Even for those of you where you feel like your bank account really doesn't match that vibe, it's kind of the vibe you give out when people encounter you, and it's a way that people remember you. Now, I don't think you're snobby or anything like that, but you could be remembered as a little bit snobby when it comes to just one particular thing. So you could be like, no, I'm not having instant coffee because you're a bit of a coffee snob, or something like that. It doesn't have to be that example. And it's not that you're ever rude about it. You're not like, oh, you must be a peasant if you like instant coffee. I'm better than that. But I get the sense that especially if you're the kind of person who works really, really hard, when the time comes to treat yourself, you're like, I've worked hard for this, so now I want the best of the best. Even if it's just having a slightly more expensive, professionally made latte rather than an instant coffee, you kind of have a let's go for the good stuff or let's not bother kind of vibe. Like if you're going to have it, you'd rather fully enjoy it and it be the good stuff. So depending on your financial situation, it's going to be different things. It could be just one coffee, or it could be a luxury vacation, depending on how much disposable income you have. It's going to be different for different people. I do think everyone in this pile has the potential for material success, but obviously we're all at different places on the timeline. So for those of you where you're like, well, that couldn't be me because I'm a single parent struggling to pay my bills or whatever, there's still something about you where you have a particular taste or standards when it comes to something. Like maybe you don't have a lot of money to spend, but you still have high standards. Like, maybe you're very cautious about the baby clothes you buy for your child, and you're like, I'm going to try and give my child the best of the best with the resources that I've got. You're kind of picky when it comes to that. And it's very clear whether you live in a mansion or you live in a one-bedroom apartment, like, you have high standards. Another random detail that I'm getting, you come across as the kind of person, like, I don't know how to explain it, but when it comes to like big things, you can be very calm in the face of chaos, is something that I'm getting. But when it comes to like the little things, you can be kind of over dramatic about it. And I think it goes back to what we said about like you like things your kind of way, or you want the best of the best. Or like if you get yourself a little treat after working really hard, you really, really look forward to it. So maybe like, I don't know, you order something on Uber Eats, and when the order comes, they forgot a specific item or they forgot your sauce or something like that. It's like sometimes you would be more dramatic about that than if you found out like someone died or something. I don't know, it's like you're really good with the big things, where there's a lot of like big emotions, but sometimes you might overreact a little bit to the smaller stuff. I don't know how to explain it, but I've seen reels that describe kind of what I mean. But it's like you could talk about a really, really traumatic thing that happened to you, and you could like kind of give away nothing. Like when you're talking about it, you kind of laugh it off because you're good at like finding humor in those dark moments. So you could like kind of say to somebody, oh yeah, this happened to me, and you're just telling it like it's a joke. But if someone gets your coffee order wrong, you're like crying in your car or something like that. I'm not saying that you're super bratty about it or you go back to the barista like, you got my order wrong, how dare you. It's not like that. It's more like you need a little moment to yourself because you're like, oh, I was really looking forward to that and they got it wrong. But you make a bigger deal sometimes about the smaller stuff than the bigger stuff. I don't know, that's just something that's coming through. It doesn't have to be those exact examples. But I think you're remembered as somebody who values yourself, and you have a lot of value in the eyes of many. Because with this wholeness card in particular, it's making me think that you're known as being someone who is self-assured and feels like a whole and complete person on their own. And I'm not saying that you are necessarily on your own, but even if you're married or you're in a relationship or something, it's like you don't let that person define you. You're good with or without another person, and people remember that about you. You possess a quiet kind of confidence. You don't have to beg for attention or validation or for people to like you. You just do your own thing, but you're remembered as somebody who has a lot of self-worth, who kind of minds their business, but you can't really be influenced by external voices because there's always this sense of like you are a whole and complete person all by yourself. There could also be something where people look at you and they're like, that is a whole woman or that is a whole man, because maybe you have a curvy or romantic body type, or you come across as like solid in some way. I'm hearing the word like mature, but it's not as in people assume that you're older or anything like that. It's more like, oh, that is a grown up, like that is a woman, that is a man. I keep hearing the phrase grown. I'm also hearing unshakable, like you have an unshakable confidence. People remember that they're going to have to try very hard to get a reaction out of you, or I also keep hearing to knock you off the top spot. I don't know what that means, but you've probably experienced a lot of people who are intimidated by you, or perhaps they projected things onto you. They've said you're stuck up or this and that, because you don't have to talk to everyone. You don't have to be friends with everyone. You just kind of stay in your own lane, and you don't need to brag or be loud to stand out. And a lot of people who don't feel that same wholeness internally, or they rely on more external sources, that kind of grates on them because they want there to be something wrong with you, so it gives them an excuse to act shady towards you. So maybe they say things trying to test you or get a reaction, so you'll snap, and so they can turn around and then say like, see, Pal 4 was mean to me, see, they are stuck up. But you're not. Your cup is full, you're full, but it's not because you're full of yourself. It's because you've worked hard to become a whole, well-rounded person. And maybe there are things in your life that matter more to you than some of these superficial things that people tend to get jealous about or make a priority. I keep hearing that you have a different set of priorities now or something like that. So it could be something to do with whatever you're choosing to prioritize will be something you're known for. It could be that you're known for your values. You could also be known as being very graceful and diplomatic. And I want to say like mastering a certain technique or teaching somebody something. You could be very talented when it comes to making something like a creative endeavor, or using your hands in some way, doing something practical. And maybe you show other people how to do it. Maybe you train people as part of your job or something like that. You're good at encouraging and inspiring others. I'm just feeling that, like with this card in particular, like I'm picturing you as this lady on the card, and people are looking at something you're doing in awe, and maybe you're even enlightening the next generation in some way. I'm just feeling that way with the little girl on the card. You could be known as somebody people look at and say like, I want to be like Pal 4 when I grow up, or something like that, because you're glamorous and you're composed. It seems like you have it all, but you're also kind-hearted and gentle and down to earth. You could be remembered as somebody who is highly regarded in your particular field, and you could be someone who is known to be uncompromising when your mind is set on something. And I don't necessarily think that you're stubborn to the point of never listening to anyone else's opinion, but I think when your mind is made up about something, when a decision has been made, there's no changing your mind. You're quite fixed on that one idea of things having to be a certain way, but I think that's what makes you great, and that's what makes the thing it is you're doing unforgettable. Let's say, as one example, you're a writer. Doesn't have to be this one, but let's say you're a writer and the publishers you're working with are pressuring you to release this book, but it's not ready yet. You're dead set on, like, give me 2 more months and it's going to be ready, but I'm not releasing this subpar work. Because the thing is, you have high expectations for yourself. Like, some of you could even be your own worst critic at times, and that means like you set high standards, but you are also willing to live up to those standards. And maybe, this publisher decides to drop you, but you're still sticking to your guns because you know this book, when it's actually finished to the standard you require, it's going to be great. And then maybe you decide to self-publish the book, or somebody else picks it up and it ends up being a bestseller because you were like, I'm not going to rush it just to make this publisher happy, because then I won't be happy with it. And if they drop me, so be it. But I'm set on this idea and I'm going to make it work my way. And you do. I think you'll remember somebody who is very sophisticated and elegant when it comes to how you look, but also when it comes to maybe your conversational skills or the way you interact with the world generally. I think you're remembered as being somebody who has something that is incredibly sought after, and it could just be your overall essence and vibe. Like, people want a little bit of what you've got in terms of your aura or a certain personality trait that you have. People could think, for example, like, I wish I had a little bit of Pal 4's decorum. Or it could be a position that you've acquired through hard work, like people are after your job role, or maybe even a possession you have, like people think you have a very valuable house, or there's something about a particular item you own that not everyone has. Even if it's the clothing example, you could have people complimenting your outfits a lot or wanting to borrow your clothes. It could even be a relationship for some of you, like you have a very sought after husband or wife, or boyfriend or girlfriend, or people are just jealous of your relationship or family generally because it just seems like you have everything you could ever need in abundance. Whether you feel like that's the truth of the situation or not, that's how people remember you. You seem like somebody where when people encounter you, they're like, what could I even have to give Pal 4? Because the energy they give off, it just seems like they have what they need. Like, you're not yearning for something outside of yourself. A couple of you could also be known as someone who is very disciplined when it comes to following a routine, whether it be like a physical fitness routine or always getting up at 6 a.m. to work hard or something like that. I think you're known as somebody who is kind of ride or die, and when you say you're going to be there, you're going to be there. Like, you're not the type of person who makes empty promises. Your friends, for example, probably feel like they can really rely on you. Like, if you're making plans with them, you're going to follow through on those plans. Or if you say, I'm there for you if you need me, you actually mean it. Like, you give someone a place to stay or a shoulder to cry on if that person is important to you. You probably don't have a huge circle, like a huge social circle. In fact, you could be known as somebody who is very exclusive. Like, it is a privilege to know you personally because you don't just let everybody in. Maybe it's kind of hard to get in your inner circle, but once someone is in there, you're known as someone who is very committed to the people you love. You are like a very loyal friend or a true loyal partner. You have a lot of love to give. You could be known as somebody who, I don't want to say who is bossy, but you could like things a certain way. People remember this about you. You set your own standard when it comes to doing things, and you're not going to lower that standard. So that could be in terms of dating expectations, like relationships, or it could be something as simple as you like a specific amount of milk in your cup of tea, and if someone gets it wrong, you'll be vocal about that. Not in a rude way, but if someone asks you if you like it, you're not going to be like, yeah, it's amazing. You're going to be like, it needs a little bit more milk. Or even, if you tell your kids to put their toys away and they don't do it right, you're like, come on, we can do better than that. It's not in a horrible way. You're not shouting at your kids or making them feel bad. I think you're someone who is remembered as allowing people to see their own potential, and you encourage them to live up to it. Like, if you're a parent, your kids would remember you as somebody who is strict but loving at the same time. If you're someone's boss, you're remembered as a boss that was firm but fair. If it's in a relationship, you're remembered as somebody who expects a lot, but you also give a lot in return. You could be known as a little bit of a perfectionist, that things have to be just right, but it's because you always know how to make everything better and how to elevate things. You're known as somebody who is not only capable of upgrading yourself, but also other people in your life, and the right people know that that's out of love and respect. I'm also hearing that you're known as being somebody who is very honourable, like you honour your promises or something like that. This might be a random specific detail for just one person, but you could be known as somebody who isn't a huge fan of hot weather, like you get a little bit aggy or frustrated in the heat. Some of you, for example, could really like autumn when the leaves are turning orange and when you get to wrap up warm inside the house and have duvet days or decorate for Christmas or something like that. You could be known as somebody who takes a lot of pride in making their home a safe, warm, and beautiful environment. You could be known as a little bit of a homebody or a hermit at times. You could also be good at like decorating or baking cakes. You could be remembered as somebody who is very, very crafty, or you're just good at making things around you pretty, including yourself. I wanted to say you scrub up well too. Like, so if some of you have attended events recently, I think you're remembered as looking really, really good. But it could be that most of the time you're maybe fairly minimalistic or natural, but then when it's the right event, you can turn around and go full glamour, and maybe people remember a specific time where you looked amazing at an event. I'm hearing sparkled and shined, so maybe some of you wore glittery clothing or glittery nails or eyeshadow at like a Christmas party or something along those lines. And you're remembered because somebody said like, wow, Pal 3 really showed us all up at the Christmas party last year. They looked really glamorous and amazing. I'm getting as well, you're known as having like an effortless appeal or effortless beauty, but actually it might be more carefully curated than what people think. And I don't mean that you haven't got naturally beautiful features that you were literally born with. A lot of you, I think you are literally just God's favourite in that way. Like, I think a lot of you have probably been told, even when you're wearing sweatpants with your hair in a bun and no makeup on, you've probably still been told that you're really pretty. But I think this idea of you being effortless and that kind of radiance you have, it kind of shines through because of things you've done in the long term rather than short term fixes, is something that's coming through, if that makes sense. So as one example, like if you experience a bad breakout of acne because you've been eating worse than usual or forgetting to take care of your skin, and I'm not saying that those are the only reasons for getting spots. You can eat amazing and take great care of your skin and still have acne, even as an adult, because stress and hormones and all types of things. But for this person, in this example, I'm talking about a person who doesn't usually have acne, and they have acknowledged themselves, well, I've been forgetting to cleanse my face a lot, and, you know, I've not been eating right, and now I've had a breakout. So a quick fix for that could be like heavy duty concealer to mask that issue. But with you, maybe you've curated your skincare routine to the point where you don't need that heavy concealer, or you've gone for a more natural routine because you found the products that work for you and give you this flawless skin. So people remember that and they're like, Pal 4 comes in with barely any makeup and they don't even have to try. But it's like maybe you've worked hard finding the right routine for you to elevate your skincare or whatever it is. It could be a fitness goal even, or something like that. People assume that you got it like that naturally, and maybe some of you do because you are God's favourites, but for others of you, it's also that you have put a lot of work in behind the scenes and you invest in those things now for your long-term health and happiness. That is something that I'm getting. Some of you could be known for maybe having a little bit of a shopping addiction, or you have a little bit of a treat yourself mentality, or you always need like the next cute gadget. And once you get it in your head that you want it, you're like, I have to have it. You could also be known as being very tactile or having physical touch as one of your main love languages. So 1414, 333, or 222 could be significant angel numbers for you. Apparently 1414 is about having a healthy relationship with yourself. I think this is absolutely something you've cultivated, Pal 4, and something you're definitely known for. 333 can be about trusting yourself and your choices, and I think like that's the thing for you. If you get in your head that something is the right thing to do, you're going to go for it. You've learned to trust yourself when it comes to making decisions and going after what you want. And 222 can be about good fortune within your relationships or within your financial or career world. So this could be something you're remembered for, whether it's now or in the future. People are going to remember you as somebody who has a certain level of success and stability within those fields. So that is what I'm getting for the oracle portion of your reading, Pal 4. I really, really hope you are enjoying the reading so far. We are about to move along to the tarot, so please bear with me and let's get started on that. I'll see you at the tarot portion of your reading, Pal 4. Hi Pal 4 Collective, welcome back to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the first 8 cards we pull for you. So this is a little bit of a deeper dive on what makes you unforgettable specifically. If the cards aren't in frame at first, don't worry, I will adjust the camera once I lay down the cards, but let's have a look at what we pulled for you, Pal 4. Okay, so we have the 9 of Swords reversed. We have the Page of Pentacles. We have the 4 of Wands. We have the 2 of Swords reversed. We have the 9 of Cups. We have the 9 of Wands. We have the 10 of Pentacles. And we have the 3 of Swords. First of all, one noticeable thing with the cards that we've pulled here, you do have a lot of 9s showing up here, Pal 4, so that could be a significant number for you. For a couple of you, maybe you could be like a life path 9, but if we look at the number 9 as an angel number, that talks about completion, transformation, and new beginnings. It's about a phase in your life coming to an end and new opportunities being on the horizon. And because we got wholeness during your oracle, something about completion just makes sense to me. So you could be unforgettable unforgettable because you're saying, you know, I don't need XYZ to complete me. That's something you're known for. It could also be that something you've completed in the material world is something that makes you memorable. So this could be a work project or a hobby, for example. And if any of you have been through a difficult cycle recently or a certain phase has come to an end, I think people know you as somebody who has been able to hold it together, or you've been able to create new opportunities for yourself regardless of these external circumstances. Like if any of you have had mental health struggles in the past, you've dealt with depression and anxiety, you're known as somebody who has faced a lot of those battles, but you still managed to come out of the other side, still looking put together without even a hair out of place. I think there's something here, like a lot of people wouldn't know that you'd gone through some of the things that you've gone through. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to be open about mental health struggles. In fact, I think it's a really amazing thing that people are talking about it more. But I think with you, you're kind of known as someone who is like, I'll deal with this in private. So you could be having the worst day of your life, but if you need to show up to work being professional, you're like, right, I'm going to go to this meeting, I'm going to seal this deal, then I'm going to go and deal with my emotions. It's giving like very much you scheduling your emotional breakdown until a later date, as weird as that sounds. And yeah, like you might tell the people closest to you, and with them, it even seems like you joke a little bit about the stuff that's happening to you, or you make it purposely dramatic to be funny. But in settings where you have to remain composed, you're going to remain composed is the overall message that I'm getting for you. And this is something you're known for. And it's something that people admire about you. It's like your level of professionalism. People will not catch you slipping up. You don't let things affect you to the point where you are like raging at people because something is bad in your personal life or whatever it is. So people don't forget that you've been through all of this, but you still show up and do whatever it is you need to do despite that. And I think, you know, touching on something we mentioned in the Oracle, you're unforgettable because you are unshakable. You could have been on the receiving end of some kind of malicious gossip in the past. And I think a lot of this has to do, or quite honestly, with you minding your own business and keeping to yourself. And I know that sounds really weird, but sometimes people hate that. Like maybe if you don't want to engage with office small talk and things like that, and so there's this sense of not everything is revealed with you, like there's some element of mystery. Sometimes it means that people kind of fill in the blanks by themselves, and if they're not at peace with themselves, then they might make assumptions about you. So if you're just quiet, then they might say you're stuck up. If you're there to show up and get the job done, they might accuse you of being unfriendly or not a team player. For just a couple of you, and this is very specific, so it might only apply to just one person here, but there's something about your manager calling you in for a meeting and saying something like, oh, the team are worried that you don't like them because you go and sit in your car at break time instead of talking in the staff room, or you don't come to our work organised get-togethers. And maybe you've had to say like, oh, is that compulsory? And the manager's been like, well, no, but people have raised concerns. And you're like, well, I get the job done though. I come and I do what I'm paid for. Like, what's the problem? I do this job to a high standard. Is that an issue? And they have to be like, no, it's not an issue. And it's not that you're unfriendly, but you're good at maintaining boundaries with people. And maybe people who are, as one example, just co-workers, they don't need to know every bit of personal information about your life. But some people feel entitled to that for some reason. But maybe if it's not about the job, you're the kind of person who's just not discussing it with those people because like they're not your friends. And often people who are nosy just hate that because maybe for some people work is their life and they get that thrill over finding out whether Sandra in accounts is having an affair or whatever. But I don't get the sense that that kind of thing is for you. You're polite and tactful, but you don't say too much. And honestly, you're probably not looking to get involved in malicious gossip directed towards other people. Like, that's not you. You're not going to stoop to that level or sacrifice your morals in that way. So maybe you're doing the right thing by not getting involved. But people feel mad sometimes when they can't bring you to their level. And maybe in the past, people have invented lies about you, like they've made up rumours. But you're unforgettable because you have this attitude of like, well, if that's what they're going to say about me, then so be it. You're not trying too hard to make them think differently because you're like, I know who I am. I know what I have to offer. If they want to think that, then they can. But I'm not going to give them a reaction. It doesn't even have to apply to just work situations. It could be like if you're a content creator of any kind, you're not prepared to give the negative comments any kind of reaction. It just doesn't throw you off at all. It's like you're so unfazable because you've had to build yourself and your self-esteem up over time, and now you don't rely on anybody else to tell you whether or not you're doing a good job. You feel pretty solid in who you are, and this is something people notice about you. You're known as somebody who is very persistent regardless of any setbacks. Some of the things you've experienced honestly would have a lot of people giving up, but you're not prepared to do that because again, when your mind is fixed on something, you will do what it takes to get that thing. You have that level of dedication and it makes you kind of unstoppable, to be honest. You might be tired, you might be drained, but you don't just give up entirely because you know what you need is just around the corner if you keep pushing. You really do have that faith. People could have said to you like, I don't know how you manage it all, or I don't know how you do all of this and still manage to show up each day looking so flawless. But that's kind of just your nature. You are a fighter, but it's more of this quiet resilience. You could also be remembered as somebody people feel they can confide in. Maybe you get a lot of people just opening up to you out of the blue because they know you as somebody who is a safe listening ear. Particularly if you don't say too much, you might notice that people get a little bit intimidated around you and they start filling in these silences. But you're known as somebody who can be trusted. Like if somebody at your work tells you something personal, they might sometimes be like, shit, why did I tell them all that? But they know it's not going to go around the whole entire office. You could be known as having a very paternal kind of vibe, and I don't mean that in an offensive way if you aren't a parent or you don't want to be, but there could be something nurturing about you, or you're known as someone people can rely on, or you'd be good at looking after people in some way. But it's not in this way of babying people necessarily. It's in the way of sort of knowing what people need and being able to hold it together and remain composed. You're also known as somebody who is very patient. It's giving me the energy of like, if you are a parent and your child hurts themselves and they're really upset and screaming and they're panicking, you're not somebody who is getting worked up right alongside them and screaming at them to be quiet or whatever. It's like you would know how to remain calm in that situation, and you provide a solution in this very methodical way whilst also comforting them at the same time by not getting worked up and by bringing an emotionally heightened situation to that more balanced level. You might be in some kind of role within your career where you have to kind of bring peace to some chaotic situations at times. A couple of you could work within medical fields, your clinicians having to deal with emergencies, or even veterinarians or veterinary assistants. Or, and this one is quite specific, so it might only apply to just one person, but it's giving me as one example, you could be the person on the other end of the phone when somebody calls an ambulance, or they call regarding some kind of emergency like police, or you do some kind of triage service. Some of you could have worked, like if you're from the UK, you could have worked for something like NHS 111, like being that triage person. I don't know what the equivalent would be for anyone from a different country, but it could be something along those lines. Those are just examples, but you could be dealing with people who are understandably very worked up and panicky, and you have to kind of maintain this level head, and you have to ask them questions, and you're good at keeping them calm and getting the details you need to try and help them. And it doesn't have to be those kinds of things specifically. I'm just thinking of those extreme scenarios and things that can be hard for people to process emotionally. So emergencies of any kind, you're sort of that voice of reason. You might, remind people to kind of slow down and breathe. You're like, I'm here, I'm going to stay on the phone with you. And people are grateful to be able to speak to somebody who is offering some semblance of calm in these otherwise very, very stressful situations. You're someone who is known as being great at navigating conversations like that. It could also be something to do with handling language barriers for those of you where that applies. Like if you work with the public as one example, maybe certain colleagues of yours get frustrated when there are language barriers and they're like, Powerful, I cannot tell what this person is saying, can I put them onto you? And you're good at navigating that, because even if you don't speak the language, you have more of that patience and you try to help that person on the other end of the phone out. So even if you can only understand like one word that they say, you repeat that back to them and you try to go from there. Whereas other people might lose their temper too quickly. You could be known for treating everyone fairly in that way. Whereas a lot of people would be like, oh, this is a little bit harder than usual, so I'm not dealing with this. And the thing is, it might not even have been that hard, but a lot of people often give up at the first hurdle when they're presented with a challenge, but you don't do that. You could be known as somebody who takes their time with clients or who does a job really well. Like if you're dealing with the general public, you could get certain individuals remembering you in the way that they're like, I want an appointment with Pal 4 again, because they're patient. They don't rush me. They actually listen to me, in whichever way that applies. If it's not a job thing, it could even be just like friends opening up to you, because particularly in work situations, but quite honestly in all aspects of life, because of the way we live these days being so fast paced, you tend to find that there's often this sense of urgency and people having shorter attention spans, because people are always thinking of the next thing they have to go and do or the next place they have to go. So at work, you might often hear people getting frustrated, like, oh, I just don't have time for this today, I have so much to do. And I'm not saying you've never said that, because if you work in a busy environment, you're going to say that at some point. But with you, it's not that same sense of urgency. I don't know how to explain it, because it's not that you're not busy. I think people know that you're busy, but I think it's like if you're going to do a job, you're going to make sure it's done well, because you'd rather it not be done at all than done really, really badly. So it doesn't matter whether you work a corporate job or you have a manager or you have your own business, but it's like you really take time to master your craft and people trust you to do that thorough job. You're known for doing everything to a really high standard. Even if, like I say, it's not your job and it's your hobbies, like your artwork, or it's in terms of listening to your friends and taking the time to give them advice or send them a nice voice note or write something heartfelt, you don't make people feel like they're an inconvenience, I think is the thing with you. Even if you're super busy or stressed yourself and you have 100 other things to do that day, you don't tend to make it anyone else's problem. You still make whoever or whatever you're focused on feel like the most important thing in the universe in that moment. So you're remembered because you make people feel special and loved and cared about, even if it's only for a brief few minutes in their day. So I don't know why this is making me think of this specific scenario, but I'm going to give one example from my personal life to describe what I mean and what it's like to be on the receiving end of this. So if you want to skip a couple of minutes or so, that's fine. But basically, I've had to have a blood test for things pretty much my whole life, and as far back as I can remember, and still to this day, for whatever reason, I am notoriously difficult to extract blood from. That is what I'm memorable for. You're remembered for all this amazing stuff, pal, and I am remembered as being that bitch who people cannot get blood from. Like, even when the clinician is able to locate the bounciest vein, often they get in it and the blood just isn't flowing, like they can't get anything out. Often they have to use like the smaller children's needle and things like that. And this is to the point even when I was in hospital a few months back. If you followed the channel for a while, you'll know what that's about. When I had to have an IV put in, nobody could do it. And they had to send this specific person down to my room with a whole ultrasound machine so they could look at the blood flow and find a suitable vein. Anyway, I'm very well aware that my difficult veins make it harder for clinicians to do their jobs, and I know they're already run off their feet, so I try my best to move around and keep hydrated before my appointments, but it still does tend to be a little bit of a struggle most of the time. I do also try and mention straight away, like, oh, just so you know, people often, find it hard to take my blood, or they usually use smaller needles, so you might want to try that. And for the most part, clinicians have been lovely, and even when it's been frustrating for them, they've managed to get the job done eventually. Sometimes they'll make a little bit of a joke like, oh, you were right, your veins are very stingy or something like that, which is fine. But a few other clinicians I've dealt with have honestly made me feel like the worst person in the world for just not having cooperative veins. Like, I know that it's annoying for them, but at the end of the day, as patients, we're not there because we want to be there. We are there because we need healthcare. Like, I'm not sat here wanting to be prodded for the fun of it. That doesn't do it for me. So when you have someone sticking needles in you and rooting around in your vein and it's hurting, and then at the same time they're like, ugh, and they're sighing and they're like, I don't have time for this, acting like they fucking hate you due to something you cannot control, it does make you feel like a huge burden and inconvenience, and it kind of puts you off going and getting the care you need. I can deal with the discomfort for a couple of minutes, but what I cannot tolerate is rudeness. I'm actually due a checkup blood test right now, and I've been putting it off because I just know that it's going to be a fiasco, because it always is. So if anyone has any tips other than hydration and warming up, please let me know. But yeah, the reason I kind of wanted to share that story is not to go on a tangent about myself, but it's to tell you the way you treat others does have a bigger impact than you think. Dealing with a kind clinician versus a clinician who makes you feel like a burden can be the difference between somebody booking or not booking that appointment, and I'm proof of that. And obviously, if I put my blood test off for a few weeks, it's probably not going to cause massive issues for me, but we could be talking about you being that person who people feel like they can come to when it comes to the bigger, more life-changing stuff. Even things like gynecological appointments and testing for cancerous cells. There are so many women who put that off because they had a bad experience with somebody who was dismissive of their pain. You're that person who people will book that appointment with, or they will ask for your services, or they will open up to you because they feel safe to do that with you. They trust you with those vulnerable moments. That's something that makes you unforgettable. One thing I'm getting with the Four of Wands is that people look forward to seeing you again. They look forward to reuniting with you. So this could be people generally, or for some of you it might be about someone specific, but people tend to remember the last time they saw you, and they think about when they'll get a chance to bump into you or meet back up with you again. I'm also hearing that your absence is not forgotten. So if you're supposed to be attending a family function, as one example, or going back to your hometown, or you're supposed to be going out somewhere with your friends and you have to skip it for whatever reason, people really miss you. So I know it sounds weird, but people don't forget that you're not there. They'll be like, wasn't Pal 4 supposed to be coming to this? Or, this will be so much better if Pal 4 was here. It's something like that. And a lot of you, it does feel like you sometimes go hermit mode, so people don't take your presence for granted. Whether it's because you're busy a lot of the time, like you're here, there and everywhere, or whether it's because you prefer to spend time alone, it's like when people get you out, they're like, I'm so glad Pal 4 came, or I'm so glad they got to enjoy this with us. It could be like, you don't often attend celebrations, but when you are there, it's always like, yay, Pal 4 actually came to this one, or something like that. People don't forget that you make them feel welcome as well, is something I'm getting. So even if you're not a big talker, you're probably the kind of person where if you've ever dealt with social anxiety, as one example, and now I keep hearing the phrase real recognizes real. So maybe it's like you notice that somebody else at the function is visibly anxious because you've been there. So you try your best to make the effort with them or make them feel comfortable, because you're like, I know what it's like to have social anxiety. And whenever you do small acts of kindness like that, people don't forget it. So it could be something even just as simple as like this person who's anxious makes a joke and everybody else talks over them or ignores them, and you're the one to make the effort to laugh at their joke or to continue the conversation with them. You're known as being observant when it comes to stuff like that. It could be that you have specific individuals who are really, really proud of you and they haven't forgotten everything you've achieved. So this could be in terms of people in your hometown discussing your successes, like, oh, Pal Flora's gone and done this, they're really making a name for themselves. Or, you know, people in your family have all your certificates of things you've accomplished hung up on the wall, or the place where you've laid down roots, someone in that place is bragging about you and saying like, my daughter or son or my wife or husband does XYZ, and they're like listing all your wins and they're feeling very, very proud. Some of you could be in college or university, or you're studying something and your family back home are like bragging about what you're doing or something along those lines. And for somebody specific, I'm hearing like maybe you have certain relatives who are older, whether it's your parents or grandparents, and to be honest, they don't really understand everything your specific course entails, but despite that, they've memorized the title of it, because although they don't know the ins and outs, they're extremely proud of you and they want to tell other people about it. Maybe for some of you, you're like the first in your family to get a degree or your master's or PhD or whatever. So someone's grandma is out there telling all their friends down at the bingo hall, you know, my granddaughter is studying criminology, specialising in psychological profiling and blood spatter patterns. I mean, obviously not that, but it's this whole long name that they've memorised. I know that's kind of specific. Yeah, there's quite a bit here about education and training. So some of you are known as being a hard worker when it comes to something you're studying, and I'm picturing like Elle Woods in Legally Blonde taking notes with the pink fluffy pen. So maybe it's like you're known as the person who is kind of a triple threat. You turn up to your classes every day looking beautiful, but you're also highly intellectual and dedicated. Page of Pentacles can also talk about getting good news when it comes to the earthly realm. So it could be that you're passing some kind of test and you're remembered maybe as somebody who got the highest scores on that particular test. I'm also hearing like it doesn't matter what your age is, but you seem like somebody who has their head screwed on. I keep hearing that phrase. So you seem like somebody who is mature or wise beyond your years. That could be something people remember about you. You also seem like somebody who is known for planning. So maybe you're a person who has cute journals that they carry around with them, or you're known as somebody who has a very packed calendar. Or for some of you, like those of you who have a significant other or someone you live with, maybe it's kind of a running joke, like you're known as somebody who puts everything on the calendar, or you say to your partner, why wasn't this on the calendar? That might just be a specific detail for one person here. You're unforgettable because you seem like somebody who is really going places. Like people look at you and they think you have excellent prospects, or that you're someone who is setting themselves up for success. I also keep hearing for someone here, you're remembered as somebody who gives people faith. And I'm specifically getting that older people might have said to you, you know, like, I'd lost faith in your generation, but people like you give me hope. And it doesn't necessarily matter what generation you are, but someone older is specifically referencing you as like one of the good ones in your particular generation. You could also be relied upon by older people generally because people know you as somebody who just knows what to do. It's like, let's say you and your same age co-workers all work at this place and one day your boss has to leave early. If your co-workers are on the rota that day, maybe your boss doesn't quite trust them to lock up the building. They feel like they have to go and explain everything, otherwise your co-workers are going to end up not doing something right, or they're going to somehow set the building on fire. But if it's you on rota, your boss feels like they don't have to worry. They just hand you the keys and they know that things are under control. Some of you could have been parentified in your younger years, or maybe you were responsible for younger siblings. You could have been the kid who was always called upon in school to do like little jobs for the teacher because you could be trusted. And that's kind of carried over into your adulthood. People just remember you as being responsible in some way. And if this isn't you right now, whatever you're setting yourself up for or whatever opportunities are going to come to you, you're going to be known as somebody who has cultivated a very abundant and comfortable life for themselves. You're going to be known as somebody who has financial stability with the Ten of Pentacles. This can also talk about generational wealth, so it could be that you're known for building a company from the ground up or inheriting a company and providing a safety net for your family in the future. You could be known as somebody who will experience this lump sum or this windfall of money out of the blue. I mean, some of you might know that eventually you'll receive this. Like if you know your family has a business that is one day going to be yours, or you are aware that you're in someone's will, then you might be aware that a sum of money will be yours in the future. But I think with you, it's like you don't take it for granted. Like you're not the kind of person who thinks, well, I'm going to get this one day, so right now I'm just going to be lazy because I've got money coming my way in the future anyway. It's like you're still working towards your goals and you're not loud about what you have or the things you own unless it's there in the physical. You're not somebody who's like, oh, one day I'm going to have all this money money and I'm going to go and buy this car and be in this fancy house. You just kind of stay quietly working behind the scenes until that reality is manifested. And even then, you're not bragging about it. You're just living your life of quiet luxury. But maybe people remember this because you're humble about it. They could be like, I didn't know Powerful had all this, or I didn't know Powerful's husband or wife had money, or something like that. Because you're not the kind of person who will come out with things like, do you know who my husband is? Do you know who my parents are? You don't name drop to try and get what you want. You don't use that to try to get yourself places. You do things off your own back, and that's why you're going to be highly respected. Now, for some of you, you know, this might not be as expected. Maybe there's some cash hidden away somewhere. So even if you know you're going to get something, you don't expect that it's going to be as much as it is. So maybe this is the universe's little way of rewarding you in the future, because you never relied upon this windfall. You've just done things independently, and then the universe is going to come through like, hey, why don't you use this extra money to put even more into this thing you've already worked hard for? Because we can see that you're willing to work hard, so we can trust you with this. It's like the universe is seeing you as responsible too. It feels like you're going to get recognized and praised for something that brings you money in the future, like you're going to be remembered for the way you make money. It also feels like you're remembered for having this sense of optimism and not letting the world get you down, even when things have gotten tough in the past. It's like you always keep a brave face, or you never let people show that they've hurt you. Even if behind the scenes you've been battling a lot of emotionally draining things, you're remembered as somebody who never let it get the better of you. You could also be unforgettable because you're viewed as somebody who seems like they're truly confident and satisfied with where they're at. You're not attention grabbing or approval seeking. You come across as being fulfilled just by being you. You seem like you have a healthy sense of self-esteem and it isn't reliant on anyone else. A Nine of Cups can also talk about the sensual stuff. If you've ever made someone feel good in any way, take it whatever way it resonates. You're unforgettable in that sense. Now, for some of you, this could be about past or current partners and intimacy, like you gave them an unforgettable time. For others of you, it could even be like, if you've ever given someone a massage, even if that's your profession, someone could still be thinking like, that's the best massage I've ever had, or something like that. Or if you cook, somebody is saying, you know, that's the best meal someone's ever made me. But it could definitely be past partners. Don't forget about how you touched them or how your body felt or something like that. And I also want to say, I'm not going to lie, Powerful, but with the Three of Swords, you could be a little bit of a heartbreaker. And normally I do take the Three of Swords quite seriously, but with this absolutely adorable imagery on this card, I'm getting more of the impression that it's like you're a heartbreaker because you're difficult to get to know, or you're a tough nut to crack. So maybe in the past people have tried their luck with you, like they've come up to you with a romantic offer, they've brought you roses, but you've had to say no. I'm picturing Maddie in Euphoria when that guy says he wants to her, and she's like, you're so sweet, but no. That's very much your vibe. You're like, oh, thank you for the flowers, but no. You're not easily obtainable, but you're also not easily forgettable. So maybe you have a long list of people who tried shooting their shot and didn't get anywhere with you, so now they're like, damn, Powerful really shot you down. But I think you never do this to be unkind. Like, it's just not in your best interest to give someone a chance if you know it's not going to work, or if they're not up to the challenge. So you'd rather say no now and be alone than get disappointed when somebody fails to meet your expectations and you have to give them a telling off. I don't know why I wanted to word it like that, but yeah, it's basically like you won't be settling for less. So you know if someone can't offer you what you need, then you're just not going to go there in the first place, and you will try to let them down gently. Next, we're going to be asking who won't ever or can't ever forget you. So if you don't want to hear about a specific person or a specific group of people, and you were just here for the what makes you unforgettable part, that is absolutely fine. I love having you here in any capacity. Thank you for being here, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. But if you're sticking around because you want to know who this is, or you're curious, we are about to get started with the who. So this could be anyone. It could be a romantic situation, a platonic situation, someone from your past, someone you're currently dealing with. I don't know. All I know is it's someone who cannot forget you, and someone who said you are living in rent-free. And like I said, this could be about more than one person. Maybe a number of people can't forget you, but today we're going to be focusing on the strongest energy or energies coming through. So let's see who is coming through and how you might know this person. Okay. We've got the Five of Pentacles, we've got the Sun, we've got the Lovers reversed, we've got the Knight of Cups, and we've got the Ten of Wands reversed, we've got Death reversed, we've got the Five of Wands, and we've got Strength reversed. Let me check all these are in frame. I just want to say that this is a brand new deck for me. My best friend got it for me for my birthday and I absolutely love it. The imagery is so gorgeous and I'm loving the descriptions in the guidebook. And I don't tend to be a go exactly by the guidebook person, because for me it's less about the meaning of just one card, because it depends on the overall story the cards are trying to tell. However, when I get a new deck, I of course like to familiarise myself with the guidebook to see if I can gain any new perspectives on particular meanings of cards. So I'm not going to read from the guidebook for every single card here, but I do just want to briefly read from the guidebook about this Five of Pentacles as it pertains to this reading. So I just want to read this little bit. So this is in relation to this picture. It's so cute. And it says, is there any worse feeling than having all the toys out but no one to play with? Even the best doggo's life can feel lonely from time to time. This is making me sad. So I almost cried when I read this because right away I pictured, you know, when a dog tries bringing you a toy, but then when you can't play, you see their little tail flop down and it's just so heartbreaking. But sometimes you just can't help it. You don't have time to play because they try bringing toys over to you at the most inappropriate times, like right when you're heading out of the door to go to work. And listen, I would love to skip work and stay at home playing with my dogs all day, every day. But I've got bills to pay and I'm not going to be able to afford to feed them if I don't go to work. So it's a necessary evil having to say no to their cute little faces, even when I don't want to. But yeah, it's like someone here is saying like, oh no, I've got no one to play with. Everybody's left me. Nobody's playing my games with me. Somebody feels like they've been left out in the cold and they've put everything they have to offer on the table to entice you. They're like, but look, here's my new toy, but you're not taking the bait. You're like, you're going to have to find someone else to play with today. You know that I've got stuff to do. So you're like that pet mum or dad who's heading out of the door to work and you're like, oh look, I have not got time for this today. Another image I'm getting, it's also making me think of, do you know when dogs get bored or they're not given enough stimulation? Sometimes they become destructive. So I'm getting the image of you returning home from work for the day and this dog has ripped up all your stuff to try and get attention. And that's not going to entice you to play their games with them because you've had a hard day at work and now you have to go and pick up all this stuff. Like they're not getting what they want out of that situation, but they'll do what it takes just to get your attention. So there could be a message there about this person engaging in some maybe self-destructive tendencies to try and get you to interact with them. Maybe they're trying to make you jealous, or they're going out a lot to fill a void, or they're posting things to try and get some sort of reaction out of you, because that's better than not hearing from you at all. I mean, it could also be this is a person who you feel left you out in the cold at one point too. The Five of Pentacles can sometimes indicate breakups, separation, divorces, someone moving out maybe. I know that won't apply to everyone, but in those instances where this is an actual ex, that could apply. But with this Sun, I really do think this is a person who knows what you bring to the table, because this is somebody who wants to bask in your warmth. And I'm also hearing the phrase worship. I don't know why, but I think it's just with this imagery, the way this dog is spluted and its entire focus is being in the sun's radiance. It's just making me feel like someone thinks the sun shines out of you, or they feel their best when the sun is shining on them in some way. So it could be like for them, when you talk to them or you give them a tiny scrap of attention, then that is their favorite place to be. It's their favorite thing in the world when they get to be in your light. Now, I am getting a couple of different messages here. I think for some of you, we are just talking about one person here, and maybe this is somebody who once treated you like the sun shone out of you. The two of you had this big intense connection, but then it rapidly fizzled out into this sense of disharmony, or this person not treating you very well. So it could be that that person is struggling to forget you, and maybe they're wondering whether it's possible to get back into your light because, you know, they're realizing they took the sun for granted and now the days are cold and dark. But it could also be for some of you that two people just cannot forget about you, and maybe one energy is that person from the past who is reflecting on an ending of some kind, and the other energy is maybe this newer crush or a secret admirer who really does think the sun shines out of you and you are very much the center of their thoughts right now. It's going to be different things for different people, and I guess it depends on the nature of your relationship with this past individual. And when I say past individual, it doesn't have to be like an official ex. It could be someone you were just talking to and getting to know and things were going well and then they weren't. But it does feel like you had some kind of thing, whether it was official or undefined. There was a thing and someone here had to detach. It could be you, it could be this person, but in whatever capacity, you could feel like this was an individual who you offered certain chances to, like you gave them an opportunity for connection or to redeem themselves in some way. But this person was intent on remaining stuck in negative patterns or repeating some of the same issues. And maybe for you, it just started to feel like too much stress and responsibility. You maybe felt like you couldn't get through to this person. You know, it felt like I'm trying, but we're not getting anywhere. Maybe this is someone you felt put way too much pressure on you to keep on top of things in whatever aspect of life that applies. Whether, you know, this is literally someone you lived with and they never took accountability for doing their fair share of the chores and it made you feel like you were doing everything alone, or even if this was someone you were just talking to, but it started to feel like it was only ever you making the effort to keep the conversation going and it was very one-sided. I think you tried to initiate honest conversations with this individual, but it resulted in perhaps this person denying the problem or not wanting to take ownership in their part. Maybe they'd accuse you of starting arguments over nothing and it would just become this huge row. maybe it felt like there was a lot of love there in the beginning to you then getting the bare minimum from this person, but maybe when you tried to raise it with them, they'd accuse you of creating problems out of nothing and things like that. I also feel like there's maybe something where they were expecting you to accept breadcrumbs, and if you ever wanted to talk about elevating this connection in some way, maybe this person was very reluctant to change anything. Like they'd say, well, you know, I don't see anything wrong with the way things are now. It started to feel like this was a person who was not on your team in some way. Like it often felt as though they were being deliberately oppositional, or they'd interpret a conversation about expectations as some kind of personal attack. Maybe they'd get quite emotional about it, but in more of an aggressive way, like they'd get angry. This is the kind of person where if you tried to raise anything with them, even in the kindest possible way, they would maybe be like, oh, so I guess I just do everything wrong then. And they turn it into this huge thing when it didn't have to be that way. Like, you guys could have simply solved the issue if this person could be like, yeah, I see where you're coming from, I'll work on this behavior, and in turn, you know, here's what I need from you. But this person would always jump straight to defensiveness or flying off the handle. Maybe it just felt like you guys were continually clashing and you just didn't feel like you could ever talk about serious issues with them because every minor thing blew up into a huge row. They never really cooperated. This could be a person as well who would give you like the silent treatment, but maybe it would last an excessive amount of time. And I think, you know, it's normal for couples to have disagreements from time to time. And whilst I don't advocate for deliberate silent treatment, I think, you know, when tensions are high, sometimes it's actually beneficial to say like, hey, I need a bit of space and, you know, time to myself to process this and to think. And sometimes that's good because it means you're not flying off the handle and saying something you don't mean in the heat of the moment. But I think needing some quiet time and silent treatment are very, very different. And I often am an advocate personally for not going to sleep angry, because as someone who is very sensitive to energies of all kinds, and you'll know this if you are in any way the same, you're probably going to struggle to get a good night's sleep if the atmosphere feels tense. Like if the atmosphere is off, it's not going to feel good, you won't get a good night's sleep, you're probably not going to be in the best place to have a productive conversation the next day. So even if there's a bigger issue that you can't fix overnight, at the very least letting someone know like, hey, I still care about you, I just need some more time to process this, can often be better than just leaving everyone not knowing where they stand. And, you know, I'm not talking about somebody doing something absolutely heinous and betraying you. I'm talking about those kind of day-to-day arguments that a lot of couples have. But it feels as though even with those day-to-day arguments, this is a person who would give you that silent treatment. And maybe, I keep hearing the phrase like go on strike. Like, let's say you guys had kids together and you and this person fought over something kind of petty in the grand scheme of things. This could be a person who turns around and they're like, well, I'm not making the kids breakfast, I'm not taking them to school, do it yourself. So it's like the kid would get punished just because the two of you fell out. So they were really childish in that way because maybe they were trying to make a point with you, but all it did was push you further away because you're thinking like, okay, we've had an argument, but really we should come together and be a team for the sake of our kid. Like, I don't expect you to be nice to me right now, but I still expect you to show up and be a parent for our kid. Obviously, that's just one example. It could be something, you know, even more minor than that. Like maybe this person always makes you coffee every morning, but then they go on strike one day. So if you wake up one day ready to like put this situation to bed, and then you realize they haven't made you coffee just to be petty, it's kind of them prolonging this disagreement because you were ready to put it behind you, but now it's clear they're not even ready for a mature discussion. I think you probably just started to feel more out of balance with this person when they did things like that. Maybe it got too much for you because you just felt like you couldn't rely on them or you couldn't trust them. This is a person who could have a really hard time being vulnerable with the strength in reverse. They could kind of go from one extreme to the other because they haven't been taught how to handle or process or show their emotions in a healthy way. So maybe when you guys would have a silly disagreement, this person would kind of go 0 to 100 and be like, okay, so I guess we're breaking up then. They could maybe be very emotionally immature in that way. But I think a lot of the reason maybe you felt like you couldn't rely on them in some way is because this seems like a person who really struggles to trust and rely on themselves. And it seems like a lot of it is due to their own confidence issues and their low self-esteem. But maybe when you give them an opportunity to create change behaviour and you try to give them a healthy support system to talk about what they're struggling with, they'd hit you with like, oh, I guess I'm just not good enough for you then. And that's not what you were saying, but I think the thing is, because you have worked hard to build yourself up, I really don't think there's room in your life for you to bend over backwards to build someone else up when they're not willing to let go of these patterns not serving them. Everything just becomes an attack to this person, and it's not that you're attacking them, but accountability feels like an attack when they feel that deeper sense of inadequacy. So maybe they've come to the conclusion of, well, I'm not the person you need me to be, so I guess we shouldn't be together. They don't feel up to the challenge, which is kind of why they project that you're the one saying that. But even if you try to say to them, like, look, I'm not saying you're not good enough, I'm with you for a reason, I'm just explaining what I need from this relationship or friendship or whatever it is, they'd be like, well, you basically are saying I'm not good enough because I can't be that for you, so we might as well just end this. And they don't even try. And I think probably you got tired of that because you need someone who can meet you where you're at, and that's not the energy this person was showing up in. I think maybe now they're thinking about you a lot, particularly if there are other people who are interested in you, because maybe they're quite territorial or they still in some way feel like you're theirs. Like they just didn't think that the last time they spoke to you would be the last time. Particularly if you guys did have a turbulent relationship or friendship, or, you know, you had a lot of arguments and getting back together and things like that. But now maybe they see you're moving on, or you have other prospects, or you're just really done with this time. And the more I look at these cards, the more I am getting the sense that you could have some kind of secret admirer situation, because the Knight of Cups just seems to me like another person's energy. And that doesn't have to be the case. It could be that when you first met this past person, they seemed like a Knight of Cups. You know, they were romantic, they were chivalrous, they wanted to come in and sweep you off your feet. That's kind of how they presented themselves. But it turns out that that was kind of a mask for some of their more volatile emotions. But the reason I say it could be someone new is because this Knight of Cups seems a lot like your energy. So this could be someone in your life who you feel matches you in the way that they're also diplomatic, they're also good at picking up on what others need, they genuinely care about others, they're good at negotiating difficult social interactions. Like the Knight of Cups does feel like that person where if you did have a disagreement with them, they would meet you part way because they would be able to understand where you're coming from. So this could be somebody new entering your life or somebody crushing on you. It could be someone who is a little bit scared of being fully vulnerable or taking the lead. Maybe they feel like they will be punching above their weight, trying to get to know you, so they're remaining a little bit cautious with it, although they are definitely interested. This could be someone who comes across as quite physically warm and open and affectionate. Like they're not scared of a little bit of physical touch. They could be a hugger, that is something that I'm getting. But if it's not this new person and you still think that this could be representative of two different iterations of this past person, it could very well be that, you know, this person has been doing their work or they've gone to therapy and they've worked on handling their emotions better. So maybe they do want to come back and show you this positive change now that they're in a better headspace. And obviously, you know, that is up to you if that's something you would want. It absolutely doesn't have to be. But I do think with this energy, it could go either way. It could just be two different versions of this past person, or it could be this past person and a new person. So how you interpret it and what you do with that is completely up to you, powerful. That is what I'm getting for your tarot reading today, powerful. We are just going to finish up your reading by rolling the astro dice. We're going to be looking at signs and houses. These signs and houses don't have to resonate with you, but it's just a little bit of extra confirmation for those of you who want that little bit of extra confirmation. Okay, so let's do that now and let's see what we get. Okay, we have got Aries and 11th house. So Aries and 11th house, which is associated with Aquarius. Let's roll again. We have got Sagittarius and 10th house, which is associated with Capricorn. So that's Sagittarius and 10th house. Roll again. We've got Gemini and we've got the 8th house, which is associated with Scorpio. So we've got Gemini and 8th house / Scorpio. Okay, yeah, that is what I'm getting for your reading today, powerful. I really, really hope you enjoyed this reading today. If you did enjoy the reading, please do me a massive favour. Please take a second out of your day to just like the video. Please, if possible, leave me a comment. Let me know what resonated for you, or just let me know which pile you picked if you don't feel comfortable letting me know what resonated. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. That is the best and easiest way to support me, and I would just really appreciate it so, so much. I am slowly making my way to 1,000 subscribers, so if you can help me with that journey, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one, powerful.